to take it on from here so that we can get to the gist of what has brought us here. Feel welcome and comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, James. So I am noticing we are a bit cold, which is very unfortunate. Somebody cannot say they've paid for your breakfast and you don't clap. It is really unfortunate. So can we clap for our partners? Because, you know, it's so unfortunate. Lately, everything is expensive. And someone gives you free breakfast and you can't even clap. It is so unfortunate. Siatini, I apologize on behalf of the partners who have been mentioned. I see CS Bagi and Accord. I want to thank all our sponsors. Round of applause for the sponsors. Now we are in class. Now we are getting somewhere. Secondly, I want to state, and I really wanted us to clap for the PSST, because there are no new taxes. No new taxes. Round of applause. But, and I notice this room is full of people from the private sector, taxpayers. If you're a taxpayer, raise your hand. If you're a taxpayer. I thought everyone was going to raise their hands. I see your people are not raising their hands, CG. Do they pay tax, CG? Okay. So, first of all, if you haven't been paying taxes, this notion of no new taxes doesn't apply to you. It will apply the next financial year, because we are going to come and collect even the one we have not been collecting from you. So now you know. Ladies and gentlemen, I really want to thank you for joining us this morning. I want to mention that if you're not wearing your mask, it's okay, because I know you're vaccinated. But you must be smiling, because we have cameras all over this room. And at some point, there will be a camera in your face. And your relatives at home are watching, because we are streaming live on the URA TV page on YouTube. And our sign language person is Miss Olivia Nachigozi. For those of you who are joining us online, please clap for our sign language assistant. And if you're also joining us, please use the hashtags. I'm sure you're aware, and they're on your screen, and you will see them throughout the day. But Know Your Budget 2022 is what we are using today. And as you may also be aware, we always use the one that indicates that your taxes work. And we see this happening. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to start off this conversation by welcoming our host, the Commissioner General, to come and make his keynote address this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the Commissioner General.
Thank you very much, Chris. Our guest of honor this morning, the Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasurer, also representing the Honorable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, our distinguished taxpayers, our partners, officials from the ministries, departments, and government agencies, the business community, the political, religious, and cultural leaders, the members of the civil society organizations, URA senior management and staff, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. I'm also struggling to speak with a mask. Maybe that's why I did not hear you. Good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Let me remove my mask so that I'm more audible. I want to start by thanking God for this wonderful day and for the opportunity before me this morning to deliver a keynote address to our distinguished guests. I want to thank you, first of all, for honoring our invitation today as we come together to discuss and understand the opportunities and responsibilities that have come with the national budget for the financial year 2022-23. Last week, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development unveiled the new financial year 48 trillion budget, and of this figure, 25.55 trillion, which is about 53% of the budget, is to be financed from taxes and non-tax revenue sourced internally. So this is a clear-cut role for me and you to make sure that we mobilize at least 53% of our national budget. Of course, the rest will be coming from the different sources, as our guest of honor may disclose to us where the rest will come from. So, ladies and gentlemen, much as we are to contribute 53% towards this budget, I wish to bring you the realization that our ultimate national aspiration is to attain economic independence, where our national expenditure is fully funded domestically. No nation can attain its true sovereignty without the ability to fund its expenditure without relying on external help. Our hope of getting external help is also dwindling, as you may be aware, day by day, because every nation has a lot of issues to attend to before they think about their neighbors. So to raise revenue sufficient for our country, we must do much more than what we are doing today. Our current tax to GDP is estimated at about 13%, and it has stagnated around this area for a long period of time. This is much below the 16% of the sub-Saharan Africa, and it has placed us in a position where we must turn to external borrowing year in, year out. And this often comes with a lot of unfavorable terms and conditions. Developed countries collect much more in the ranges of 50% of their GDP and above. And research has indicated that for any country to develop, we at least need to collect 20% of the GDP. So this is our mission and our ambition. The Honorable Minister, as you have already heard from our MC, did not announce any new taxes because statistics have shown that there is quite a bit of potential to raise more revenue with the existing taxes, as long as we can bring more eligible citizens to pay their fair share of the taxes. So this is going to be our area of focus going forward, enlarging our tax register and our tax base. I must point out that some improvements have already been registered so far. In this stride, unregistered traders and undeclared employment dominate our economy. The current tax register is about 2.5 million taxpayers out of a population of 45 million Ugandans. We estimate that over 7 million people are engaged in income-generating activities and therefore would have something to contribute towards this cause. But many are not contributing as indicated. Therefore, at URA, we are committing to improving tax efficiency and enhancing compliance, realizing that the new revenue target is a collective effort and commitment across government, civil society, private sector, and development partners. We want to take this opportunity to rally each one of us here in the room today and those who are watching us on television, that this is the time for us to stand together and work towards collecting sufficient revenue for our national development. At URA, we have instituted some mechanisms to improve our efficiency in service delivery, to enhance taxpayer compliance towards realization of this target. These initiatives are all in line with the government domestic revenue mobilization strategy, and I'm going to highlight a few below. The first one is tax education, taxpayer services, and communication. We have developed and we are rolling out a full taxpayer education program, and we are improving our service delivery strategy to promote transparency, information sharing, and partnerships with stakeholders. We are also working to ensure that taxpayers experience an improved service as they interact with us. Some of the initiatives include stakeholder collaboration, especially in the areas of information exchange, third-party data integration and analysis to identify and register tax persons to expand the tax register. Maybe I need to mention our guest of honor that in this current financial year, left with 1 month to end, Uganda Revenue Authority has already expanded the tax register by over 800,000 new taxpayers. And this was our target for this financial year. So we moved from, thank you, we moved from 1.7 and now we have exceeded 2.4. The exact numbers are in excess of 800,000 new taxpayers. And we'll keep up this effort because now we have the information necessary to show us who is playing what role in our economy. We have also intensified our tax education through implementing a needs-based strategy that is equipping our taxpayers with the relevant knowledge on their tax rights and obligations. I urge all our taxpayers and businessmen and women to approach us whenever they do not understand anything related to tax. It is our obligation and duty to sensitize you, and we will appreciate any invitation, prompting, engagement that will task us to explain some of the tax principles and issues that are a bit complicated. We have also simplified and automated processes to encourage voluntary compliance. One of the examples, Honorable PSST, is that now URA is able to issue instant TINs. So taxpayers can get their TINs without paying a penny, without walking to our offices. By just applying online, you can be issued an instant TIN. We have also simplified the conversion of customs processes and declarations to combat dumping. We've expanded our offering on the National Electronic Single Window Platform to accommodate 21 more process managers. We have the 24-hour non-intrusive inspection technology now deployed on most of our border points, and many other initiatives, to mention but a few. Usage of sector-based approach to customer satisfaction. Currently, we are focusing on the informal sector by working with the different associations to bring them onto the tax register. We are working together with the local governments, the Uganda Registration Services Bureau, and a joint program called Taxpayer Registration Expansion Program, otherwise known as TREP. We're emphasizing the importance of business formalization. The program also offers a one-stop center where all requirements to formalize a business can be received under one roof. The new budget has several economic recovery opportunities which will benefit businesses that are formalized. We therefore take this opportunity to encourage most of our fellow citizens running informal businesses to formalize so that they will be able to benefit from the government initiatives. Adoption of the use of a mobile tax office. We want to appreciate government through our PSST and also our development partners for availing us funds. We are able to acquire a mobile tax office in this financial year, and I'm reliably informed that before the financial year ends, we will also receive a second mobile tax office. These are buses that have been equipped with everything that is needed in a tax office to educate, to register, to engage, to receive payments, to receive returns, and so on and so forth. So we have a plan to have a mobile tax office for every region, so that where we don't have a presence, we can have days when we visit those areas and register and handle tax issues, even without a permanent office there. So this journey has seen us receive 2 buses, and we support all our partners who supported us in this effort. We are still looking for 2 more. Then we'll have a dedicated mobile office for every region to help us reach out to as many citizens and economic players as possible. We have improved our client support through an upgraded contact center, offering on-call service support through interactive voice response technology, through a web chat provision, even a WhatsApp chat. For those of us who love WhatsApp, you can reach out to URA and have a chat with us on any matter related to tax. And I will request that that WhatsApp number is projected. But if I remember it correctly, it should be 0772 140 000. Is that correct? Okay, so that is a chat that you can even reach out to as we have this engagement, and you can ask URA to answer any question related to tax through that platform. But most importantly, Honorable PSST would like to inform you that URA is focusing on data management and data analytics. We believe this is the future, and it should guide our decisions as a tax body. So in line with the budget theme that highlights digital transformation, we have embarked on the consolidation of usage of smart business solutions, which we introduced a couple of years, namely the digital tax stamps and also the electronic physical receipting and invoicing solution, otherwise known as IFRIS. These will help us improve collection of local excise duty and value-added tax, respectively. The DTS is a solution that enables us to track and trace a product right from production or importation through distribution and up to consumption. To date, we have 13 excisable items that have been gazetted for stamping, and manufacturers of these, as well as importers, are duly stamping these items. The key features of DTS and IFRIS are that they are real-time solutions that enable exchange of information on production and transaction directly with the tax administration. They also make the bookkeeping simplified for our taxpayers, and they help in enhancing monitoring. And it will also help the taxpayers with quick refunds, because the taxpayers have been concerned about the period it takes to refund. Those who are fully integrated on IFRIS will be able to get their refunds in good time, because we'll be having real-time information. Now, these efforts are all aimed at curbing illicit trade and eliminating an even playing field for our taxpayers. I continue to urge our businesses to take up these technologies. I also take this opportunity to appeal to the public to request for physicalized receipts when they purchase goods, and also to check that the goods they buy have digital stamps. I can see the projection on the screens is showing us a sample of what an IFRIS receipt looks like, and that is it. It can be in any form, the A4 size, these small prints, but the important thing to look out for is that QR code the square-like shape down, the QR code. And the other elements to look out to is the physical document number and the validation numbers, which are up there. The projection is a bit poor. I'm not sure your eyes can read that, but generally that's what an IFRS receipt looks like. So one of these days when you walk into a shop, when you're buying any good, please ask for an e-receipt or an IFRS receipt. Whether you want to claim a tax refund or you don't, it is important for the country. It will show that your tax which you have paid has been registered directly with the Treasury. It's going towards national development. But also, if you want to ask for a tax refund, this is what you need to present. And URA is developing an app that will help you know in real time that this receipt is genuine. Because as we come up with these technologies, there are some scrupulous citizens that think they can beat the system. So they've come up with this kind of receipt, but actually when you scan it, you find that that QR code does not give you any real information. And in which case, inform URA so that we can quickly know and deal with that kind of fraud. I think there was also a slide that could show us the digital stamp, if you can show what it looks like. The stamp is in many shapes. Some of it is, yes, the paper stamps like those ones you are seeing on sugar, you're seeing on cement, but also there's the digital stamp, like what you see on top of that soda or beer cup. And if it's water, you'll also see some dark print of a digital number. All these, and again, there's an app on IFRS, the Ask URA app. If you go there, you'll find IFRS verification. You can again scan this number and it will confirm that this is a genuine product made by WAVA, water, and indeed it has paid tax. In the interest of time, let me now move quickly and highlight a few other initiatives that we are advancing to help us achieve this mandate. There is adoption of alternative dispute resolution. This is provided for in the law, and we believe it's a win-win situation for the taxpayers and the tax administrators. So we are inviting all our esteemed taxpayers who are having one dispute or the other with us on any tax matter. We pledge to come with clean hands, own up if we are wrong. We'll expect the same from your side, but let's save our time and efforts and resources from long court processes when we can resolve tax matters amicably for the benefit of either party. We are also lifting up our human resource capacity. And on this note, I would like again to thank our guest of honor and the Ministry of Finance and the entire government for supporting us to increase our team. Today at Uganda Revenue Authority, we are receiving a new team of 600 officers who will support us in our mission. This is a significant number. Certainly, it is not, it will not solve all our problems, but it's a good step in the right direction, and therefore we appreciate the support of government in helping us expand this. But beyond the numbers, we are also stepping up and recommitting ourselves in areas of efficiency, in areas of transparency and accountability. We owe this to you as our esteemed taxpayers. We owe this to our nation, that we will serve in this role of revenue collection with clean hands. Therefore, we are emphasizing integrity as number one qualification for anyone to serve in this organization, patriotism, love for the country beyond self, but also professionalism. So we are skilling our staff to be up to the game. We cannot be the administrators of revenue matters when we are not the best in that field. So guided by three core values, patriotism, integrity, and professionalism, at URA, we are recommitting ourselves to this noble and sacred mandate of developing our country through efficiently mobilizing revenue. Honorable PSST and all our esteemed guests, I cannot conclude my remarks this morning without appreciating our taxpayers who have sacrificed against many odds in very challenging, hard times of the pandemic and fulfilled their tax obligations in contributing towards the target, the revenue target for the current financial year. We had a target of 24 trillion Uganda shillings, and as we speak, Honorable PSST, we have already collected some figure in excess of 20 trillion, and we're on course to achieve this target. We're on course to achieve this target in the next 10 days. It sounds very difficult. It sounds an uphill task, but I'll tell you how and why I think we can achieve it, especially if I get the support of our esteemed taxpayers. The month of June is a special month when we file and close financial years for most businesses as well as government. So I want to take this unique day and opportunity to appeal to our valued taxpayers that as we come to the close of this financial year, let us not drop the momentum and the resilience that we have demonstrated throughout the year. Let everybody look at their returns and make sure that they file accurately and they pay the right amount of tax in income tax. I expected the URA team to clap for that point because it's very, very important that we encourage our taxpayers to do that. And I also want to take this opportunity to encourage those who have not been filing right. It is not too late because, as I have informed you, URA is determined to be data-driven going forward. And I can assure you we have a lot of data where we are today. But we are also signing up to additional more data that will show us not only the transactions within our boundaries, but even beyond. And therefore, we would not like to jump on you unexpected and start demanding taxes, penalties, and interests. We would want to encourage anybody who may have omitted in some declaration of the tax in the previous period to make right in the next 10 days as we close the financial year through a window called voluntary disclosure. Honorable PSST, I'd like to inform you and our esteemed guests that Uganda signed up for the on the OECD Global Forum, and this accesses us information to a network of 144 countries. Under this treaty, we have the following. We can request and obtain information regarding taxpayers across borders and any transactions and assets held beyond our boundaries. We can obtain assistance in recovery of tax owed in Uganda from any offshore wealth or assets. We can obtain financial accounts information from financial institutions all around the world. We can, excuse me. We can conduct audits and investigations together with other tax administrations from other jurisdictions, and we can perform service of documents. Now, this is another area of information sharing which helps us get information just beyond our boundaries. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this in line with voluntary disclosure, that instead of us walking that long path and coming up with tax assessments that will have penalties, that will have interests, we can have a fresh start with all our taxpayers who may have omitted anything in the declaration of their tax, and we encourage them to utilize the next 10 days, because come the 1st of July in the new financial year, and especially when the law that was recently passed by Parliament kicks into effect, we will have no other way to go but to complete our audits and investigations and again recover all taxes with the relevant penalties and interest. So I make this rallying call to all our taxpayers who may not have previously declared their tax matters effectively to do so in the next 10 days, and there you will only pay the tax that you have voluntarily declared without any further penalty. As we close the current financial year, I want to encourage all our taxpayers to file our income tax returns. I call upon each one of you not to tire in meeting your tax obligation, but declare fully and make your noble and civic duty of paying tax. This is the highest form of demonstrating individual integrity, personal responsibility as a full committed citizen to seeing our nation prosper. As URA, we are again confirming our commitment in doing everything within our means to ensure that revenue mobilization that we have achieved in the last 2 financial years is not only consolidated, but is improved further. And I would like to assure you, our Honorable PSST, that the days of declaring deficit at Uganda Revenue Authority are over. We are in an upward trend. We shall not let down our country. We shall do our civic role and collect enough revenue for our national development. I want to wish everyone here a fruitful discussion on the opportunities in the new budget, as well as the new amendments in the tax laws. Thank you so much for listening to me, for God and my country.
I think we can do much better than that. Another round of applause for the Commissioner General. I want to state that when he was speaking, I think the pressure was here. No more deficits. No more deficits. CG, you know when you say those things, the media, we note that is the only question we ask in the next press conference. So we will only be asking at the report of the first quarter of the next financial year. Secondly, I really want us to applaud the Uganda Revenue Authority. They've done an amazing job amid this resilience of the economy. Really put your hands together. CG, I want to report as a stakeholder, and you know, I've seen Ian here before he left, the amount of pressure URA puts on you to get airtime for sensitization. You have done an awesome job with this team. There has not been a day they don't call because they want airtime. Oh, by the way, CG, free airtime. Free. And yet I want money, but you can imagine. But they've done an amazing job. And I thought I need to give the report. One is, URA is one of the, if you asked, and the surveys are out there, organizations you would want to work for, especially for the graduates out of university, fresh out of university. I think now URA is institution number 1, and I thought we need to appreciate that. Because of the interest Ugandans have in joining URA, these days, CG, even the look, when I see some of your officers in the field, I feel like we should continue paying the tax because they look fantastic. You look very beautiful today. And sometimes I worry if it is our money that is making them look this nice. Because some of them are very healthy, in fact, especially those who come to the TV stations. They represent the institution. I won't mention names. Commissioner General, I want in a very special way to also thank the institution as a fourth estate for the open door policy at the Uganda Revenue Authority. And I want to thank your team that have always been welcoming, not only when we want to ask the hard questions, but also myself as a taxpayer, as Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. The team has handled me very well, even with my arrears. So I want to thank URA for managing our issues very well. I now want to take the pleasure of inviting the Honorable Minister, represented here by the Permanent Secretary, to come and make his remarks, but also note that in his presentation, He'll also be speaking as both minister and as PSST because he has also a presentation on the budget outlook for the financial year 22-23. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the PSST.
Okay. The Commissioner General, as well as your entire team at this great institution, all of the senior government officials who are present, members of the civil society, particularly those who have partnered with the URA, as well as my ministry, to communicate the budget to Ugandans in a more effective way. I can see some of them here: CS Bag, Accord, Siatini, Uganda Data Network, name it. You are all very most welcome. The members of private sector present, particularly the business people who pay tax. You know, there are so many private sector in Uganda, but there are those who pay tax. Ladies and gentlemen, first apologies from the Honorable Minister. He wouldn't be able to attend today because today is Cabinet Day, Monday is Cabinet Day. I don't know how URA was not aware. So the Minister is in the Cabinet, but I've got the opportunity also to be the Minister for a few minutes. I bring his greetings. He gave me a speech, which I will leave here. I will not read verbatim because it has most of the things that you know, which he already told you in the budget. But I will speak about a few areas on the budget outlook. I will talk about the budget goals so that they are clear to everybody. The budget goals for 2022-23, as well as the strategy which we are going to use to deliver this budget. We shall also talk about some few reforms, few changes which we've made in our budgeting principles, and also how the 48.1 trillion shillings are going to be financed, with some small breakdown to emphasize what the minister had already presented, and then finally the projected impact of this budget on our economy. Starting with the outlook, as we all are aware, Parliament approved this 48.1 trillion shilling budget in May, actually on May 20th. And the President assented to the appropriation bill about a week ago, and the Minister presented this budget to you on 14th of June. It has been one of the most challenging budgeting processes in our recent past. Why? Because the economy was in the recess by the time we were budgeting. The economy had been locked down when we started the budgeting process, and therefore we were obliged to design a budget which is going to support the recovery of the economy and at the same time sustain social services and our development agenda. And at the same time, we didn't want to constrain the business community. So we said we should not introduce new taxes, and yet we had more expenditure needs, expenditure requirements. Therefore, this budget was designed on the following goals. There were three major goals we wanted to achieve. Number one, to transform the 39% of the households that are still in subsistence to move to the monetary economy. That is therefore a transformational budget. This budget is transformational in a way that it targets to support Ugandans who are still out of the economy to join the economy. Ugandan economy is overly concentrated in a greater Kampala metropolitan area where 65% of GDP is produced. We want the economy or economic activities to be widespread, broad-based economy across the country by supporting those households, especially in subsistence agriculture, to join the economy. The second goal was to support business and economic recovery. To support businesses to recover from the COVID-19 and restore their activities to the pre-pandemic levels. And the last goal was to protect households from the rising prices of essential goods and services using fundamental policies which are prudent and sustainable. In that way, therefore, this budget, we have termed it a pro-people budget. It is pro-people because it is investing a substantial proportion of the money we are going to spend next year in areas which are going to directly benefit the people or indirectly trickle down to the people. The emphasis, for example, was on human capital development. Human capital development is the first one in taking resources off the envelope. It was allocated 9.12 trillion shillings, taking about 29% of the total budget, with education taking 4.14 trillion, health 3.72 trillion, water 1 trillion. And in that, we would want to support the education institutions to recover from the pandemic. And a lot of this money will be going there. So we increased the budget for education deliberately to support the recovery of education because it was one of the most affected sectors. But also, our strategies, they point at a pro-people stance. First, the provision of relief and recovery funds. In this budget, we've provided a number of funds which the minister read to support businesses to recover and also to provide relief to those which had been impacted. We have a small business recovery fund which we are continuing. We have the Myoga fund. I will not go into figures. We have had them a number of times. The Uganda Development Bank has been capitalized further. UDC has also been capitalized to provide equity to those businesses which are strategic but were struggling. But also we got a grant for women in business to graduate them from informality to formal businesses, 800 billion grant. We have also set out a strategy to fully implement the parish development model, which is a vehicle for getting those households I've talked about that are in subsistence to join the money economy. So beginning July next month, we are going to send money to the lowest point possible for government, and that's the parish. And this money is strictly for those households which are still in subsistence. As I speak here, there are teams across the country that are identifying these households, that are registering them, that are preparing them to receive these funds. There was some money, we would have already sent it, but we said no, we can't send money to people we don't know, and for the purpose we haven't yet fully understood. So, and some people have been debating, how is the PDM so different from other interventions of government? There are a number of things which makes it unique. Number one, it is more than money. It has been tailored on 7 pillars so that we can support the household in a holistic manner. Improving infrastructure in the rural areas where most Ugandans reside and they also do business, especially the business of farming. We have also talked about the governance. Right now, Uganda, for the first time now in a long time, has a parish chief in every parish, who's going to be the focal point of mobilizing the parish and ensuring that government programs reach the people in a more effective way. We have also been able to design a pillar around development of agricultural value chains, from production up to the marketing. And that's the pillar we are going to start with. The financial inclusion, the money which is going into financial inclusion, strictly for financing pillar number 1. The farmers are going to use it to purchase quality inputs for their farms. Then the other pillars, the 6 pillars, they have the money within their portfolios which is going to be used to support the first pillar. So the pillar for infrastructure, we are now requiring the authorities responsible for developing infrastructure to tailor the infrastructure development to the PDM. If it is water for production, it's going to be tailored to the PDM. And so on and so forth. So this is a fundamental strategy for government to get every Ugandan engaged in economic activities. And we are beginning with agriculture. But also not forgetting that other funds are available for supporting those who are outside agriculture already, as I've already mentioned them. We have also a strategy of implementing appropriate fiscal and monetary policies. Number 1, to support the recovery of businesses, but also to fight the inflation. You know, crises are like taxis or border. As one crisis leaves the stage, another one parks almost at the same point where the other ones has left. We thought with the lessening of COVID-19 that we are going to fully reopen the economy, and as a result we shall have recovery, no much deal. We had already put in place a strategy. A few months after reopening the economy, we had the prices of essential goods and services rising. And the government has been under pressure from all corners of intervening in this, with many people suggesting the easier way of doing things. The easier way, control the price. Tell the petrol stations to sell at a certain price. Others, cut the tax. Remove 1,000 shillings per litre of fuel, the price will reduce. Others, give subsidy. Subsidy is when government gets money and you give to the producer of a good or supplier so that they can reduce the cost and reduce the price. Now, all of those I'm mentioning, they are the easier way of doing things, and common sense tells you that they would help very quickly to loosen the problem. However, economics tends to behave differently. If we controlled the price, if we told the petrol stations to sell at a certain price, the petrol stations will just either sell their fuel outside Uganda to other markets, which don't control them, or if all other markets have controlled, they will hide the fuel. They will not put it in the pumps. They will put it in jerry cans and hide somewhere. When you go to the petrol station, they will tell you there is no fuel. But as you are pushing your car out of the station because it has run out of gas, some younger man will run after you and tell you how they can get you some fuel. Then they take you somewhere in a bush in Zambia and sell you a jerry can. This time, government wanted to save you the price of 60,000 a litre, and now the younger man is asking you to pay 10,000 a litre because the fuel is nowhere to be seen. What I'm talking about is not theory. That's how Uganda used to run. Those days when we used to control prices here. So that one may not work and will not work, and we shall not do it. Others who suggested the control of cutting taxes as a way of reducing the price, they forgot that all of the items, or most of the items whose prices have increased, they are imported items. So when I cut the tax, say on fuel, I remove 1,000 shillings tax as a way of supporting you to get more fuel, you will actually go and get more fuel. You will demand more. But this fuel, the reason the price has increased is because there is less fuel because of a number of reasons. The COVID-19 had affected the production of oil, and also the war now which is going on in Ukraine and Russia affected the supply of fuel. So when I reduce, you will increase the demand of fuel. I've lost revenue, and yet I will not achieve the purpose. When you increase the demand of fuel, the sellers of fuel will go back to their original price. And after about 2 weeks or 3, they will demand that I give them more tax cuts. The treasury is dry, the prices have not changed, and the economy will now come to a standstill. Again, I'm not talking theory. Some of our neighbors did what you're asking for. And as I speak now, they have reversed that policy. They have found that's not sustainable. The prices have kept on coming back. Why? Because the dealers in fuel keep on smuggling it when you have subsidized it, or they hide it and sell at, again, back to the price which should have been a market price. The same happens with the subsidies. They don't work. Those things don't work. So what are we doing? We are using the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is government, how government manipulates spending money and also taxes to ensure that the prices are stabilized. We are aware that inflation has increased, so the best thing we are doing now is to reduce on the amount of money we pump through the government processes so that we can reduce on the money supply in the economy. It's going to be a painful period, but we are going to have better results. You don't fight inflation by fueling it with more money. So those of you who are asking us to give you more money to spend, to buy more fuel, to buy more cooking oil, which is expensive, you will be like encouraging the sellers to sell more to increase more the price. So the best way we're going to do is to manipulate the money supply using both fiscal, which is my side, and the monetary policy, Bank of Uganda. I think Bank of Uganda Deputy Governor will be here and speak to you about how these things work. Right away, he has increased the interest rates by about 100 basis points, actually 150 basis points. And this is going to help in reducing the money in circulation. And that's the only way we are going to fight the inflation. Then we shall go back to our normal business when the international prices have stabilized and our lives will be much better. We are also maintaining peace, security, and stability as a strategy. Those three things I've mentioned, they are the fundamentals, the foundation of every plan of a businessman and of a government. All of the plans you have in your head cannot work when there is no stability, when there is no security. I hear some people sometimes talking about how we are spending a lot of money on security. So that money in security, why don't you put it in agriculture? You can't go to the garden where there are bullets, can you? Right now in Congo, I've seen images. Some people are sharing images on social media of what is happening in some places in Congo, where younger people are walking on the streets freely with the pangas. Do you want to live in such an environment? You can't, and you can't do business in such an environment. So we are not going to compromise on peace, security, and stability because they are the foundations for whatever we want to do. We want also to enhance investment in productive sectors. We have put money in the entire agricultural value chain, agro-industrialization, 1.4 trillion shillings. You know, when you say 1.4 trillion, some people will come and tell you how agriculture has received little money. 1.4 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not little money. And this is strictly to encourage the value chain to work, from production to marketing, but mainly also in adding value. We have also put money in productive infrastructure, specifically transport as well as electricity. We want to finish all of the road projects that we started. We are not beginning very many new road infrastructure projects. We want to first complete those we are doing, but also improve on maintenance of roads, both the trunk roads and the district and community roads. What are the key challenges we faced while budgeting? Or the key, let me start with the changes we are doing in the budget. We want the budget of Uganda to become more responsive to national priorities. That when we read the priorities on paper, they are also reflected in terms of resource allocation. And we avoid the rhetoric of just speaking good statements when the money is elsewhere. So when we started our budgeting journey last August, we realized that over years, government had been using incremental budgeting principle, incremental budget. Incremental budget is where resources were locked up in areas which have ceased to be priority. So any other priority which comes, like now we said parish development model is a priority. Government would go and borrow money or increase tax to raise revenue to finance the new priority, to add to the other money which you already have in the budget. That's incremental budget. That incremental budgeting had created problems because it always left government with no option but to borrow more or to increase tax. So every year, new taxes or new tax rates. New tax targets for URA. Sometimes the targets not scientific, but it's simply because we have new priorities that require new money. So beginning next year, we have used what we call a redistributive budgeting principle. By redistributing money from those areas which have ceased to be priorities to now the areas which are priorities. We opened up the budget and said, well, 5 years ago, we wanted to do this. Is it still a priority? No. We cut the money, put it in a basket. And we moved 1.7 trillion shillings from other areas into the basket. And that's the money which we used to finance now the new priorities, including the parish model. We are going to finance the parish model without borrowing a coin or increasing tax. That is 1.059 trillion shillings raised. Number two, enhancement of salaries of scientists. His Excellency the President has been very clear severally that we need to enhance our public servants, the people who work for government, but beginning with scientists in a phased manner. We are going to enhance all Ugandans who are working for government over the medium term. But each year, we need to enhance a certain category of people so that they fit within the resource constraint we have. Next year, we have started with the scientists, health workers, innovators, as well as science teachers. We have enhanced them in a phased way. Some of them might not get 100% enhancement because it doesn't work that way. But all of that money we have used to enhance the scientists, we raised it by redistributing resources, not by borrowing. But all priorities could not be financed through this process because the budget is also committed in some multi-year projects which you can't easily phase out, like road infrastructure, energy. We want to transmit our electricity from the dams so that we stop paying dimmed energy, which some people don't want to hear. But dimmed energy has saved us one major problem. of power shortage. Now we don't have power shortage. We have the energy generated, but we don't have transmission lines ready. Someone may say, that's poor planning. Why do you build a dam when there is no transmission line? Easier said. You can't get money to do all of the things all of the time. I mean at the same time. So the phasing, the dams are now there. The transmission lines are at about between 80 to 95% completion. Within about 1 to 2 years, we are going to have transmitted all our electricity we have in the dams. And with that, Uganda will have more electricity penetration. And electricity is a game. It raises the capacity of every individual to become productive or even to live a better life. You know, just imagine a life without electricity. How does it look like? Here in Kampala, they just switch off a few minutes, and everybody doesn't want to actually stay home. When you see people driving around when they have switched off electricity, they want to run away from darkness. But now there are places in Uganda which have never seen electricity since the earth was created. So we want to ensure that they get electricity. And that's a strategy for us to get there. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, what you have as 2022-23 budget is a budget which has become more redistributive and therefore more allocative efficiency in it. I want to briefly, before I conclude, break down for you these 48 trillion so that we understand them. The domestic, on the side of resource, domestic resources, they are going to add to 30.8 trillion domestic resources. That is 46.8% of the budget. And of these, you'll find that URA, as they have already told you, we have given them a task to collect a total of 25.6 trillion. 25.6 trillion. 23.8 trillion tax, 1.8 trillion non-tax revenue. So in total, URA is going to collect 25.6 trillion. This is the highest amount of tax revenue Uganda has ever collected in the history of this country. And we are collecting it in a very difficult year. That shows you how the future looks so bright. When all these difficulties have gone and we are able to expand the tax base, as the Commissioner General has told you, we don't want to see any more new taxes or new tax rates falling on the same people who are paying tax. All Ugandans, if they paid small amount of tax, we can end up collecting a lot of revenue without constraining or distorting the businesses. Because overtaxation also can cause problems if the taxes are falling on the same people who have already been paying. Then, on top of the 25.6 trillion, we are going to borrow 5 trillion shillings domestically. 5 trillion. Borrowing it from Ugandans who have some money and non-Ugandans who are willing to buy our government paper. We are going to borrow 5 trillion. So in total, we shall end up with about 30.79 trillion, or 76.8% of the total budget. Externally, we are going to borrow 9 trillion. 9.3 trillion is going to be borrowed from external sources, mainly for projects, to implement projects, infrastructure, those brand new roads you are driving on, the transmission lines of electricity, and so on and so forth. Those are things we are going to be borrowing for. Externally, we don't borrow for any other purpose other than projects, because nobody is lending governments anymore as budget support. No, they lend mainly projects. Budget support, we have to, that's the money we are borrowing, mainly from domestic, the 5 trillion. So that's the total amount of 40.1 trillion shillings which we have to spend next year. Somebody may ask, what about the 8 trillion? Because the budget is 48 trillion. The 8 trillion is what we call a domestic debt refinancing. This is money government of Uganda borrowed many years ago, some about 20 years ago, in the form of bonds and treasury bills, which we borrowed recently. These papers are going to mature next year. When the papers mature, on top of the interest, you have to pay back the principal. But governments don't work like that the world over, because these are bonds. So what we do, we issue new bonds to pay the old bonds, and then we roll over that debt. So it is a kind of a budget neutral thing. It doesn't affect us. We borrow from Cisse to pay Rachel, and also we save some money, and we move forward. So that one is 8 trillion. It has reduced. Last year, this year we are ending, that debt rollover was 8.5 trillion. Next year we are going to borrow only 8 trillion. So that's the revenue side, or the inflow side. How we are going to spend the money, I've already mentioned to you some of the things, but also the minister read for you the things. We are going to spend this money in the most efficient way you could find it being expended. Another thing I wanted to highlight, please. We are embarking on a serious agenda of restoring fiscal discipline. The different ministries, departments, and agencies must reflect the times we are in. Therefore, beginning in July, money is going to be released strictly for those expenditures which are pro-people. This tendency of people coming, we want a supplementary to buy a car, it's over. It will not happen. I want to tell you this. I am buying a small machine in my ministry to destroy papers which have a request for supplementary for buying cars, for wage shortfalls, for this and that. We shall destroy those papers. We shall not process them, because that's fiscal indiscipline. And I'm very happy that URA, in order to raise more revenue, is also looking at expansion of the tax register. They have already achieved something, 800,000, something like that, added to the tax register. That means these are Ugandans or businesses that are capable of paying tax, but they were not on the register to pay. Because they can't be just new businesses. No, they have been around, but hiding somewhere. I'm happy that URA is doing this. This will help us to mobilize more revenue without raising the burden on the particular taxpayers. And please, URA, make sure that you increase revenue mobilization without constraining or killing businesses. And that is the best way of expanding the tax base. That's how you can get that. So we are actualizing these things. There are some key issues to note before I leave. Some key issues to note. These, we call them the imperatives of this budget of 2022-23. I've already mentioned the one, enhanced fiscal discipline by limiting supplemental expenditure to only the unforeseeable and unavoidable spending. This morning, before I came here, I've just declined one supplementary request for next year. Imagine, the budget has not yet been approved, come. Can you, this is a very critical, can we do it next year? I said, no, thank you. We are not going to do business like that. Secondly, enhanced domestic revenue mobilization. That is another imperative we are going to have in this budget. Thirdly, continued budget reform to make it more responsive to national priorities. Number 4, limiting the borrowing in the medium term so that we can restore our debt GDP within 50. To talk about debt briefly, because I know Ugandans talk about these things. I hear people, I don't know where you get those numbers you discuss. And the facts that you call facts. Please, the debt of Uganda, as the minister told you, we measure debt by mid-year and end of year. But we give projections. Projections are done on assumptions which are bound either to be true or to change. Now, mid-year, in December 2021, that was the mid-year of this financial year we are ending this month, our debt was 73 trillion shillings. And that was 49% of the GDP. By that time, because that's the outturn, how the debt turned out at that point. Now, we are going to announce a new number. At that time, we projected that our debt to GDP ratio might rise to 51% of GDP from 49. But now the president told you, and also my minister told you, that our GDP has surprised us. Our GDP has grown much faster than we had anticipated. It grew by 4.6% this year. We had projected a growth of 3.8%. That growth of 4.6 is on account of the reopening of the economy, which we didn't expect by the time we were making the projections, and also on account of the faster growth, faster recovery of manufacturing sector and agriculture. They have recovered much faster than we had anticipated. But also in January, you remember, in Feb, government announced the final investment decision for our oil and gas. And that also has brought in more money in Uganda by those who are investing in the sector or anticipating opportunities there. So as a result of that, the GDP of Uganda has expanded much more than we had thought last year to now 163 trillion shillings. Something like a $45.7 billion. That means even the projection we had made might not be true. of the debt to GDP ratio, because the base, to get debt to GDP, you get the debt divided by the GDP. So if the denominator increases and the numerator does not increase, then the outcome may reduce. So we are waiting to see when we are closing the books, what will be the outturn, and we shall announce it. We shall announce it to Ugandans, but that is so far the debt to GDP ratio we are using, 49 point something small percent of GDP. But also that is not a very good measure, as you know. We have been debating these things with civil society. We are improving on how to measure our debt exposure. We need to look at, for example, our interest as a proportion of our revenue. We look at our also exports vis-a-vis debt, so that we can have a better way of managing our debt. I want to tell you and to assure all Ugandans that government is more concerned and more committed to ensuring that Uganda does not get into trouble like other countries as far as debt is concerned. We are very, very careful with it. We shall never borrow money beyond our capacity to repay the debt. We are also continuing with aligning our budget to the National Development Plan, so that the plan is the one which informs the budget and not the other way around. So go and look at the NDP. What you see there as the priorities, they are the ones which we are budgeting for. We are not budgeting for anyone's opinions. We want also to automate government processes. Our budget is going to perform better next year because we are automating most of our processes, including procurement. We automated money, movement of money. The money you receive from URA into the treasury does not come in a sack or a bag. No. They just press a button and the money comes to the account in the Bank of Uganda. When we are issuing this money to the government ministries, departments and agencies and other local governments, we don't send money in a bag. We use a system, a computer system, to take the money. Why? Because when you avoid touching money, temptation is lower. You are just seeing a figure. And then you start distributing to the owners. So the Uganda, when people hear cash budget, they think we have bags of money. No, we don't touch money. That process is done. Another process we are now, even the budgeting process is automated. But we had a problem of procurement. People used to sit in a room. Up to now, they are sitting in a room to read out their bids and negotiate with those who are in charge. They call them the procurement committees, the contract committee. There are so many committees in government. Those committees, they are the breeding presses of corruption. Because you are sitting there in the room negotiating. Now we are going to procure online. You sit somewhere in your office and you procure on a computer. You tell UNRWA that I want to construct a road. And this road I'm offering so much unit cost per kilometer. And the following details you give them. That will reduce the temptation for corruption. And also brings transparency for all people. You know, as I always say, we want to procure like a WhatsApp group. Many of you are in a WhatsApp group. When someone is typing, a member, you all see Ramadan is typing. It comes, Ramadan is typing. When he deletes, it shows Ramadan is deleted. Now imagine if we are procuring that way. All of us, we on a screen. That will help in managing those challenges we are having. I know in Uganda we have talked a lot about corruption and so on. Some people, corruption. Corruption is not fought by talking. Corruption is fought by putting in place a trust infrastructure. And that trust infrastructure, building it. We are also automating other service delivery in health facilities. The medicine we are buying through NMS now is going to be tracked from NMS up to the person who took it, so that we stop losing our medicine. Health workers, we have enhanced them. They no longer have excuse of not attending to the patients. So absenteeism will be easily tracked using electronic mechanisms. You come and sign in electronically. It monitors whether when you signed in, then you drove out, came back in the evening to sign out. We're going to be tracking all of that. Schools, school inspection. There used to be people called school inspectors. They first announced, Kitagobwa Secondary School, we are coming on Monday to inspect. Of course, everybody will be around that Monday. The school will be the cleanest. Now we want to start monitoring schools and supervising them, inspecting them using teller. Teacher and learners effectiveness system, so that we can be able to assess both the learners and the teachers using electronic means. So we are digitizing Uganda, and we hope this will help us to fight fraud and any other form of corruption, but also to save money and to enhance efficiency. Lastly, we are rationalizing government. Beginning next year, we are rationalizing government. Rationalizing means what? To make a government neater and better suited to serving the people. So we are eliminating duplications in government, overlaps, but also mandate wars. There are mandate wars in government. That's my mandate, the other mandate. So we want to ensure these are rationalized. Some agencies you heard, they are going to go back to the ministries. But as we are taking them back to the ministries, what about those ministries where they are going? How are they? Are they the most efficient? We are looking into all of this. And you will be seeing some footsteps of rationalization. Ladies and gentlemen, we project that if we implement this budget effectively, and we are going to, given the number of reforms we are making, our growth is projected that's going to rise to 6% next financial year. From 4.6 we have achieved this year. So our target growth next year is 6%. We want to go back to our target growth as a country. As a result, our GDP is projected to rise to 143, roughly 174, I beg your pardon, 174 trillion shillings. That will be our GDP by end of next financial year as a projection. But of course, as I've told you, sometimes the assumption is changed. Our debt to GDP ratio is likely to rise to 51.3% by the end of that year. Our per capita income is likely to rise from $1,046 this year to $1,049 next year. If we could sustain this for the next 2 years, World Bank will declare us a middle income economy. It is the World Bank that declares countries middle income. They have the scorecard. The cutoff point is $1,039. We have now surpassed it. The president told you we are at the entrance of middle income. We are getting there. Some people are wondering, are you sure? Are we becoming middle income? Oh yes. And this is what we have been telling you. That middle income does not mean that your life will change so much. No. Middle income means if we have a GDP and we agreed to share it equally, how much would everybody get? Now in Uganda, if we agreed today that let us share the wealth we created this year equally, each Ugandan would get 3.7 million shillings. Would that make all of us rich? No. So what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to ensure that we get as many people as possible engaging in economic activities so that this GDP we are creating is broad-based. It's not in the hands of very few people. Otherwise, there are so many middle-income countries in Africa, but the lives of their people have not changed much. What makes the lives of people change is achieving middle income which is broad-based, which is in the hands of everybody. And that's what we are trying to do. So don't please argue about middle income. We are at the entrance. If we sustain it, sustain growth, and the GDP accumulation, we are going to become middle income in a few years to come now. Our fiscal deficit is destined to reduce to 5.2% next financial year. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you on behalf of my minister and on behalf of the Minister of Finance as a whole. When I say Minister of Finance as a whole, I've included all its associated agencies, including URA. First of all, for your input into the budget process, which enabled the ministry to come up with a pro-people budget. And I call upon, once again, for your support for its implementation, so that we can be able to transform our economy by especially getting more Ugandans into this economy, to get engaged in economic activities. We are committed as government to supporting the businesses to recover so that they can be able to give us tax revenue, employ Ugandans, but also make money for themselves. It's good to have people with money in a country, because when you have more people with money, you have less problems in a country. Most of these issues we have in Africa, they are issues of poverty. Once we take away the poverty, we shall be able to solve most of those issues. Aggregate demand is likely to rise next financial year, and also domestic revenue performance is likely to be enhanced. I thank you very much for listening, and I encourage all of you to participate fully in this dialogue. You will participate candidly, but informatively. Don't say, in my opinion, this is what should be done. No, bring things which are researched, things which are facts, and we have a very good debate. I thank you. I request you to run away because
Thank you very much. In URA, we say Asante sana. Yongeza tena. The theme for this for the budget is full monetization of Uganda's economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, market access, and digital transformation. And I'm happy that from the speech of the minister and the PSST, we are beginning to see what this means. And Maurice, what's up next? We are going to have WhatsApp here, isn't it? We'd like to see who is typing, who is deleting, so that everything is transparent. We have a little breakdown of the policy measures in affecting customs and domestic taxes. And I think Maurice is going to introduce the commissioners to take a few minutes to go through those measures so that we can then get into the dialogue when we are well informed. Over to you, Maurice.
All right. Okay, I notice we've been sitting for quite too long. So shall we stand? I don't want to invite the commissioners when you are all thinking about deleting in some WhatsApp groups where you are some of the information you shared. Oh, by the way, there is also the option of when you send the message to the wrong group. So I don't know how we will do with that. You know, if you're procuring and you're procuring in the wrong group. Okay. So stretch yourselves, you know, stretch your hands, and if you don't have a neighbor, please don't hit them. Just try and turn, you know, your waist, you know, your hands. I see the commissioners know these things. They were in Chankwanzi not so long ago. Okay. And if you're at the back, please come. There's no VIPs in this conversation. These yellow chairs are yours, even some of the black ones in front. If you're at the back, come. We need you to appear on TV. So let's take our seats, guys. Please take your seats. Take your seats. If you're at the back and you want to sit in front, please come. These chairs are yours. The URA team, please encourage our people at the back to come. I also will be giving out coupons for lunch from the front, not the back. Maybe that can encourage you to come. Okay. So let's move into the conversations. We run out of some time, but I'm hoping that we can capture some time back for us to have a conversation with our experts this morning and early afternoon. Allow me now begin with our Commissioner, Domestic Taxes, who will be taking us through the URA domestic tax amendments. So allow me invite Ms. Sarah Chelengat to come and make a presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Sarah Chelengat. Sarah, I noticed they gave you 20 minutes, but I will be thinking of 15 for me.
Good morning, taxpayers. Good morning. Thank you for coming to appreciate this budget and to understand tax. It's important to know tax because tax is part of our life. We pay tax every day. When you wake up every day, you pay tax because we eat, we travel. In the process, you are contributing tax. Thank you so much. I'm already introduced. I won't go into that. We are going to specifically start with domestic tax, proposals that affect domestic taxes. And as the Minister of Finance and the PSST has indicated, we don't have any new measures. What is very, we will just make sure that the people who are already complying comply. Then we look for those who should be in the tax net to also comply. So if you look at the picture of the budget, the key things that I will be telling to our esteemed taxpayers and clients, you to make sure that you are very compliant. If you cannot file the returns yourself, get somebody who can help you, a tax agent. That will be very good, because ignorance of the law is no defense. So specifically, to start with the income tax, one of the key amendments is just streamlining the definition of beneficial ownership. This is in line with the sharing of information. The Commissioner General indicated that we will be part of the sharing of the information with over 100 countries, and we need to streamline this in terms of implement this. So we are replacing the final ownership and absolute ownership tests with ultimate control or ownership test, and separating the definition of beneficial owner from the methodology of identifying beneficial owner. This will align the definition and methodology with the Financial Task Force and OECD standards, which Uganda is required to align. So this clarity is what is very important for us. If you've been reading the newspapers and social media, we've been able to collect over 200 billion out of sharing of information. So this is what this provision helps us. Provide a group of beneficiaries who are not individually identified in a trust or deed, where the beneficiaries are identified as the sons of or grandsons. Generally, we want to look at people beyond their corporate veils. If it is a trust, who are the people behind this trust? The ultimate individuals behind this trust who benefit from this income. And those are the ones who should be paying tax. If you will note, many of us hide behind companies. The company paying the taxes, but at the end of the day, you will be paying, you will be earning income from this company. We also want you to pay a fair share of this income. So aligning with the international tax requirements and providing a legal framework for collecting an automatic exchange of information that is consistent with the internationally agreed policies and legal frameworks. That is what we are trying to achieve. Still within income tax amendments, we are also looking at the definition of exempt organization. We've been having exempt organization defined to include an organization that is charitable, that provides charitable activities, alleviation of poverty, and support to vulnerable people in society. Exempt organization would also include an amateur sporting association to support sports talent, and then educational institution of a public character implying if that educational institution does not confer a private benefit to anybody or any of its directors that run it. Now we are including a research institution whose object is not for profit, to the extent that the exempt organization status to research institutions whose object is not for profit. Many people are in research. It may be medical, it may be educational, but if it's not for profit, implying that nobody within that confers a private benefit, there is no distribution of dividends to the owners, then that research institution will be exempt. We want to promote, government is looking into promoting research. Research is very important. Research into medical field, research into education, and any form of research to enhance human knowledge is very, very important. So government is looking into that, and the reason why we feel this organization should be exempt. Of course, for you to benefit from this, you have to write to the commissioner for that confirmation. Then we will be able to review your organizational status and then give you that confirmation that you are indeed exempt. You don't just assume. And we will also expect that you will file the returns of income and be compliant. The other one is on rental tax amendment. Rental tax is assessed separately as a tax head for both companies and individuals. And specifically, again, it was more of streamlining, no much change. And for individuals specifically, if you earn $2,820,000 per year, which is $235,000 per month as your gross rental income, you will not pay tax. We feel that that should really help you take care of the small necessities. Anything over and above that, we expect you to just pay government 12% of the gross pay. Again, this is in line with us looking at simplifying the tax systems to improve compliance. Because if you have, let's say, 2 million, all you need to do is to, if you have 1 million, just give the taxman, the government, 120,000, and the rest is yours. That really looks affordable. Let's support government to run and support with the social services. The other one is for companies. For companies, we are taxing at 50% gross rent. Sorry, we are allowing 50% of the costs, including losses, out of the gross rental income, and then the tax will be at 30%. There is no provision to carry forward the tax losses, and this ideally gives an effective tax rate of about 15%. So if you look at it on the face of it, it may look as if companies are a bit taxed higher, but it's more or less the same. And remember, for individuals, it's 12%, and yet we are not giving them deductions. So it's more or less the same. And again, looking at simplicity of the tax regime to enhance compliance. Clarification of exempt income from transport not embarked in Uganda. There is a withholding tax if a truck is leaving here to go to, say, Mombasa. There is a withholding tax of 2%. But if the truck leaves Mombasa, maybe a Kenyan truck, carries goods from Mombasa to bring them to Uganda, there was a provision that that truck had to pay 15% withholding tax. If the payer is in Uganda, they would withhold. Again, we looked at this provision and noted that good international tax policy practice guides that international transport for cargo and goods is taxed in the country of residence of the foreign transporter. So currently in Uganda, such income may be taxed where the transporter renders the service. So this is good move, and it was bringing a lot of controversy because we are landlocked as Uganda, and it's important that we are competitive from a perspective of transportation. So this is good, a good move for the transporters. Income tax amendments, again, there was an extension for the exemption of Bujagali hydropower. I remember the PSST was talking of the dimming of power. This is what government is doing so that everyone has access to power. Power now is available up to the rural-most place in Uganda, and this is very good. We just need it to be affordable. This is only possible if every Ugandan is able to pay some small tax so that government is able to do its work of providing such services. So this exemption seeks to reduce the average electricity tariff of the Bujagali hydro electricity. Again, on petroleum taxes, we noted that penalties for petroleum taxes are within the domestic laws. So what we are saying is that they will remain within the domestic laws and not in the Tax Procedures Code Act as a clarification. Again, on income tax still, in the exempt schedule, we are including International Development Law Organization in the first schedule. These are public international entities that are exempt from tax. They are listed in the first schedule of the Income Tax Act. So if you see such organizations included here, these are exempt by virtue of their status. Replacing Department for International Development with Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office. Amendment of the definition of VAT on exempt imported service. Now we are going to VAT. Specifically for VAT, we don't have many amendments other than taxing imported service. Initially, we had exempted the VAT on imported service if the importer of the service was dealing in exempt supplies. And this had given the banks, the insurance companies, that exemption. Now this is going to be repealed to widen the scope of taxation. We feel that if you are importing that service, it's important that we charge that tax, because ordinarily if you had consumed that service here, you would still pay the tax. We need to have neutrality in tax as we collect this tax revenue. So that is what will happen, and the exemption remains for the oil and gas sector. The other one on VAT still is introducing cash accounting to government supplies. Because of the delay in government to pay suppliers, people who work with the government, contractors, especially the construction sector, you note that VAT is accounted for using the accrual method. And with accrual, you have to account for VAT, whether you've been paid or not. Now government takes about 1 month, 2 months, 6 months to pay, or 1 year. You have to borrow this money and pay, so the cost of business became very difficult for taxpayers working with the government. We are introducing cash basis of accounting for VAT. What does that mean? That you will account for VAT if you have received this money from the ministry, then you pay us. It will also mean that we will not give you a credit unless you have paid for that purchase. So because we want to compare like with like. Claim the credit if you have paid for the purchase, account for the VAT if you have paid, if you have been paid on the output, on the sales. So this is fair enough for both government and the taxpayers. The other one is the incentive requiring investors in the hospital sector to have VAT exemption. Initially, we had said the hospital should be at a level of national referral. And we noted that in Uganda, there are only 2 hospitals at that level: Mulago National Referral Hospital and Butabika National Referral Hospital. So this was quite limiting. So this amendment now removes that, and this is expected to ease and increase the usage of the incentive by investors. And however, the thresholds of the $5 million will still apply. We want a serious hospital to get that exemption, not small clinics. So that is a good move by government. Still on VAT, we are introducing exempt supplies for oxygen for use in the hospitals. This is very, very important. Remember what happened during COVID. Oxygen was quite expensive, so we want to make it exempt so that it is affordable. The government is also introducing VAT exemption on assistive devices for persons with disability, e.g. hearing aids, orthotic devices, etc., to enable persons with disabilities to conduct activities of daily living, e.g. talking, eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, and home maintenance. So this is really a welcome move for this type of people. Government is appreciating what happens in some of the people with disabilities. Very, very good. some of these wheelchairs, what you find them very expensive. So the removal of 18% is quite good. The other one is airport user services charged by Civil Aviation Authority. This cost is usually about $40, and it's paid as part of your ticket fee when you purchase a ticket. So to access our airport, you would be paying that, and that fee was standard rated. It had VAT at 18%. So government is removing this to make it competitive, to make our airport services more competitive. That should be a welcome move for our tourists who come to visit our country, and it's good. The other one is zero rating educational services made in the partner states of the East African community, in addition to the existing consideration for Uganda. Initially, the provisions of the law only had Uganda, educational services manufactured within Uganda. So manufacturers like Peak Fair and others in that, scholastic materials, including people who do printing for textbooks for schools like MK Publishers, would have these educational materials zero rated. But now we are widening the scope because EAC is one market, again, to make it competitive within the region, so that we have Kenya or Rwanda products come here freely, and to make education cheap and affordable. So that should be a welcome move, and it's a fulfillment of the requirements of the East African community. It will also help to enhance competition. If you have been printing these books and they are not good quality, then someone will prefer the one from TZ. After all, they are coming in without taxes. So it's really good competition within the EAC as one block. Zero rating the supply of menstrual cups, repealing the existing one which was exempting. There is a difference between exemption and zero rating. Both of them have no VAT, but the difference is that for exemption, you are able to get a refund. For zero rating, you get a refund of the input tax that you incur. So menstrual cups were in exempt schedule. We are bringing them into this, making them even more cheaper, in addition to the existing consideration for tampons and including the inputs for their manufacture, to make them affordable by allowing manufacturers to claim the input tax. So people in this business, this is a welcome move, and it's good because sanitary towels now for girls in schools will be affordable. This is a welcome move by government. The other is the Tax Procedures Code Act. This part of the law deals mainly with the offenses and penalties. Just to emphasize again, we may not have done amendments in the law, but there are some changes that will be punitive if you don't comply. So it's good that you are here, file your returns by the 30th of this month, and ensure that you're up to speed with the deadlines that URA requires. The beauty is that we are also very proactive. We give you reminders when to file your return. We send those reminders to your email, to your phone. It's really, there is no reason why you shouldn't plan to pay your taxes in good time, to avoid the cost of tax in form of penalties and interest. So specifically for this, we are looking at change of the effective date of expiry for all tax agents to 31st December every calendar year, irrespective of their registration commencement date. So if you renew your license for domestic tax as a tax agent on, say, 1st September, that license will expire on 31st December. We are aligning this with the customs certificate for clearing agents, and specifically for DT, we are now very strict. We want tax agents who are professional, tax agents who are going to support the taxpayers do the right thing, and not support the taxpayers to declare, to under-declare. And this will be very punitive. So we are matching this with the customs thing. Imposing penal tax, that is double the tax due on the goods of Uganda shillings 50 million, whichever is higher, on any person who fails to activate a tax stamp on locally manufactured or imported goods. The Commissioner General was presenting, and he was able to show you how a tax stamp looks like, including the different goods that are excisable. Just to give an example, excisable goods include soft drinks, alcoholic beverages. We have now sugar, cement, juices, etc., all having tax stamps. So if you do not stamp, that penalty of 50 million is very punitive. We want to encourage activation of tax stamps. We want to encourage tax transparency for purposes of mobilizing revenue for government to function. We are also still in line with tax stamps, introducing temporary closure of business that do not comply. We will give you a notice period of 15 days, and we will come and close you up. So to ensure compliance again on this area. Requirement of persons in construction and extractive industries to disclose all contractors to be used in conducting all operations within 7 days from the date of signing the contract. Another one is payment of informers. Informers are people who will come in confidence to URA and tell us this taxpayer does not pay this type of tax. There is a non-compliance here, and this is the information that I have. So these people help us to get information and to collect tax. So what we are saying, we are just streamlining. The percentage was 5% before on tax collected. But we realize that there is also a possibility of an informer giving us information that leads into assessment that we may not collect immediately. We shall give you a 1% reward of the tax assessed or the tax that has not been assessed. We may just get that information and wait to tax maybe the following year. If we estimate the tax, we pay you 1% or 15 million, whichever is less. On recovery of that unassessed tax, we again give you 5% or 100 million, whichever is less. This is good for all of us. What we are saying is that this will encourage voluntary compliance and also to encourage our patriotic citizens who will help us in tax mobilization. Let's love our country and let every one of us pay our fair share of taxes. Offenses relating to electronic fiscal receipting and tax stamps. Tax stamps, we had also picked them before. A fine of 1,500 currency points or imprisonment not exceeding 10 years or both for the following offenses: failure to fix or activate tax stamps, forgery of an e-freeze invoice. We've been having so many fraudsters forging the e-freeze invoice. We've even been able to prosecute some, and others are still being investigated. Now the law comes into place 1st July. We should be able to arm ourselves really to these fraudsters who claim the tax stamp. You are not in the business of construction, but you are claiming an invoice that has VAT of, let's say, 10 million, and claiming that you are constructing. You bought this invoice from a hardware shop. These hardware shops just sell you the invoice at 10% of the value, then you claim. So as you claim that invoice, just know you can easily go to Luzira for 10 years. 1,500 currency points. A currency point is 20,000. So you can multiply that by 1,500. Printing over, let's do the right thing. Let's support tax collection so that everyone pays a fair share. We don't want to overtax the people who are already complying. a fine of 2,500 currency points for each day in default or imprisonment not exceeding 10 years for failure to file an information return relating to automatic exchange of information. Again, this is in line with what we were streamlining. Now, if we write you and you don't give us that information, we shall give you that penalty. You may be a bank or a multinational here, and we've written to you to give us information, there will be that penalty. Failure to maintain records for purposes of automatic exchange of information. Making a false or misleading statement in the information return. Omitting from a statement made in the information return. This will encourage compliance and support implementation of automatic exchange of information. Tax Appeals Tribunal. The Tax Appeals Tribunal helps us to support compliance, and especially for litigation, sort of controversy in tax disputes. If you object to URA and the objection decision is not favorable, you have to start with TAT. It's the first court of instance. So you start with TAT, and if you are not happy with TAT, you go to the High Court. So TAT has been getting all appeals because it's the first court that you have to go. Because of this, we've now increased the number of members to 8, plus the chairman, there will be 9, and this increase in number will make them have more than one sitting at a time, and this will facilitate the conclusion of those controversies, and it's good. It's really good for both URA and for the taxpayers. We want these tax controversies to be sorted very fast, the appeals to be sorted very fast, and this is good. Still in line with this, 40% of these members will be ladies. The 40% of these members who will be in the tribunal will be ladies. So we are also gender sensitive in our tax administration role. Government is looking into that. That is very good for the ladies in this of Uganda. On stamp duty exemptions, stamp duty, the amendment reduces the threshold for investor incentive. Investment threshold has been reduced to 35 million from $50 million for stamp duty exemption on certain instruments for manufacturers to meet these specific criteria. This is to encourage foreign and local direct investment in manufacturing by reducing the exemption requirement, just to have more people really benefit from this. There is a current stamp duty exemption on certain instruments for a manufacturer who has the capacity to use at least 70% of the locally produced raw materials and employs at least 70% citizens with an aggregate wage of at least 70% of the total wage bill. Clarifying the stamp duty on transfer of land to a holder of letters of administration or probate to or beneficiary to 15,000. This is quite affordable for Ugandans. If you are getting letters of administration, you will pay stamp duty of 15,000. The other introduction of stamp duty is nil stamp duty on agreements relating to deposit of title or pledges on the value. The instrument agreement relating to deposit of title deeds, etc., there will be exemption of stamp duty. Initially it was 1%, now it will be nil. Nil stamp duty on agricultural insurance. This is also a welcome move. Government supports agriculture, and you've seen what is happening in the weather patterns. It has been so dry. So when we remove this stamp duty, it's really a welcome move, and we thank the ministry for that. To support the growth and recovery of the agricultural sector by reducing the cost of agricultural insurance. Nil stamp duty on security bonds or mortgage deed executed by way of security for the due execution of an office. Again, to ease access to credit by reducing the cost of stamp. So this is a welcome move, and we again thank government for doing that. Yeah, this is part of the COVID-19 tax waivers on stamp duty, on loan instruments like loan agreements, debentures, equitable mortgages, whose value was made nil, sorry. However, stamp duty relating to the deposit of the title remained at 1%. The amendment extends to the same treatment in these instruments, as is the case of most of the loan instruments, to ease access to credit. Generally, the amendments for domestic tax are quite fair, except for the penalties. For penalties, you can plan to comply and you avoid them. But the budget, the tax proposals are quite good. We shall be sharing these amendments to you on email, and feel free to call us. We have a contact center, a state-of-the-art contact center. You can access them on WhatsApp, Twitter, email, telephone. In case you have any clarification to make, please feel free to ask. In consulting, they say consultation is wealth. Feel free to ask. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming.
I think we can do better than that. A round of applause for Sarah. And I think Abo told me you have agreed that you have eaten his time. He will only do a presentation in 2 minutes. I don't know how he will do that. But I wanted to let you know that we have time to interrogate some of this information that has been shared. And like the PSST said, it's a conversation. So we are not, sharing opinions that we believe should be the way forward. So may I quickly invite the Commissioner Customs, Mr. Abo Kagumire, to come and present the regional trade developments and revenue policies and the implications on the Ugandan economy. Ladies and gentlemen, as we did for Sarah, a round of applause for Abo.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Aber Kagumire, Commissioner Customs. I'll straight away delve into the customs presentation because of time, and I'll not take long. I hope someone is projecting. Okay. I am starting with the customs tax amendments. I picked those maybe which are cross-cutting. The first one is the fabrics. There's a decision which was reached to grant Uganda a stay of application of the East African Community Common External Tariff. Now we charge textiles 35% import duty, or United States $3 per kilogram, whichever is higher. And this is going to be for 1 year. The whole idea here from government is to promote the textile sector in Uganda. This equally goes for garments. And if you realize that in Uganda, textiles and garments have about 525 tariff lines. So we have picked only 47 tariff lines that are going to be affected, that are being manufactured in Uganda, by the factories in Uganda. So those are the ones which are affected. The rest remain the way they were. So if they are garments that are manufactured in Uganda, they'll be paying 35% import duty, or $3.5 per kilogram, whichever is higher, for 1 year. Again, this is to promote the textile sector in Uganda. The other item which is impacted is the PVC trunking fitting. This one, we are going to apply a duty rate of 35% for 1 year. Again, this is to promote local content. These are PVC trunking, the fittings. Those who are in construction know them. Edible palm oil. This is palm oil used in making cooking oil and soap. The import duty applicable at the rate of 35% now from 25%. This is again to protect local industries and promote import substitution. We are talking of also water, including mineral waters containing added sugar or any sweetening matter which are flavored. The import duty applicable has also gone 35% instead of 25%. And this is in line with the current East African Community Common External Tariff Review, where now the maximum rate of import duty for finished products is at 35%. The other item are the gloves. Uganda now is manufacturing gloves. We are thinking inward. So surgical and other gloves, the import duty applicable now is 10% instead of 0% for a period of 1 year. Again, this is to promote local manufacturing. The other area is the articles of plastics, especially materials for making toilets. We have factories now which are doing these toilets, though plastic. So the import duty applicable at the rate of 10% now, instead of 25% for 1 year. This is a reduction now. We want to improve sanitation and fiscal waste management. The other area are brakes, including coaster braking hubs, mainly for motorcycles, borders. The import duty applicable at the rate is now at 25% instead of 10%, again to protect local industries and promote import substitution. We have some factories which have started making these motorcycles and these parts. The other area are other paper and paperboard and coated craft paper, mainly for making surgical gloves and examination gloves. So we are granting, the EAC granted Uganda a remission of duty from 35% to 25% and 10% to apply. So we are going to apply 10% and 0% respectively for these two products of paper for making the surgical gloves and the one for making examination gloves. The other one are the catalyst preparations for the manufacture of foam and spring mattresses. Our manufacturers have reached a level now they are able to produce one of the best mattresses. So they are granted the remission of duty from 10% to apply a duty rate of 0% for 1 year, so that we are able to get into this space and promote local manufacturing. The other area, again, are the springs and leaves for the manufacture of foam and spring mattresses. So the decision, they have granted remission of duty from 25% to 10% now for 1 year for the manufacture of foam and spring mattresses, again in line with promoting local manufacturing. The other HSE code 8481, the valves and their corresponding components parts used for manufacture of motorcycle tubes. Now, these ones have also been granted a remission of duty to apply a duty rate of 0% for 1 year, again in a bid to promote local manufacturing. Brake linings, brake pads, brakes, servo brakes, parts, these are spares. Motor vehicles, motorcycles, have granted Uganda a remission of duty to apply a rate of 0% for 1 year, again to promote manufacturing in this sector. The new common external tariff has transposed now from as we got it from the World Customs Organization, which we are going to implement 1st of July 2022, has the highest rate now, the band at 35%. So there shall be 4 bands now. We have 0%, we have 10%, we have 25%, and now we are at 35%. Of course, we will still remain with the sensitive list, which will be at the back of that book, that will be above 35%. The other area are the dairy products and the meat products. I think government felt wise, and EAC, the whole region of East Africa, that we have enough of this. So if you want to import outside East Africa, then you'll pay at 35% for dairy products and meat products. For cereals, iron and steel products, again, they are at 35% because now the highest tariff band is 35% from 25%. For cotton and textiles, again, it has gone from 25 to 35%. But remember, on textiles, it is also $3 per kilogram, whichever is higher. If 35% is higher, we'll take 35. If $3 is higher, we'll go with $3 per kilogram, whichever is higher. On edible oils, beverages, and spirits, again, 35% from 25%. Furniture and leather products, again, from 25% to the highest band, which is 35%. Fresh cut flowers have also gone 35%, plus sugar and confectionery, the chocolates and the biscuits, the fruits and the nuts has gone 35% from 25%. Coffee, tea, and spices and paints have also gone to 35% from 25%. And textiles as well, I talked about it, 35% or US dollar, $3 per kilogram, whichever is higher. Headgears, ceramic products, they have also gone to 35% from 25%, which was the other band. The areas of attention is that now we have 4 bands, 0, 10, 25, and 35, which is the highest. And this was agreed on in Arusha just last month. So this is the position that we have. And effective 1st July next month, we will be implementing the HSC 2017 version. The harmonized system version is stopping. We will be applying the harmonized system 2022, which will be having that highest tariff band. Other areas for your attention, our dear taxpayers, is that we need to embrace the African Continental Free Trade Area because government has done a lot to promote import substitution. So URA is going to concentrate more on facilitating our exports into these markets and removing all the non-tariff barriers. We need to interest you in this area as we promote local production. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Abo, for trying to do that in the shortest time possible. And that really will form some of the discussions we'll have, given the information we've been provided this morning, the bulk of which, of course, from the Commissioner General and also from the Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury on behalf of the Minister of Finance. So as I prepare, and maybe I want to quickly invite the panel, we will have 2 panel discussions. They will be quite short, but we will again open this up for you to talk to us or ask as many questions as possible and make some comments on the discussion this morning. Allow me invite 3 eminent persons here, a representative of the Private Sector Foundation. I think I saw the Vice Chair here, Madam Victoria Sechitoleko. Honorable, are you still here? But if she is in the room, we need a representative of the Private Sector Foundation. And also may I now invite a representative from the Uganda Development Bank, and also the Uganda Debt Network. If you could make your way to the front, and I'll ask the team just to check if we have someone from the Private Sector Foundation. And immediately after this very short conversation, we will then have a conversation with our partners in the civil society organizations, and I will introduce them at that point. As they take their seats and we mic them, Tim, can we mic the gentlemen? And as we mic the gentlemen, please note it wasn't the intention of URA to make sure they were only men. There were women who were meant to also be here. But the women have delegated men, which is a nice thing these days. So I want us to applaud the women for delegating men to these conversations. All right. But we'll have a woman in the next panel. I can guarantee that because she's here. May I, in a very special way, recognize Sheikh Mohammed Ali Waiswa, our second Deputy Mufti, Uganda Supreme Muslim Council. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And religious institutions are very critical in sensitizing our masses about their role in paying taxes. All right. So I will invite the team shortly to speak to us. But please note, we have a booklet that has been given to you. The details both Sarah and Abo were talking to. Please check. Some of these were referred to by Abo at the end, especially some of the customs taxes and your sensitization of whoever hasn't come to this room based on the information in those books is critical. So please, if you don't have a copy when you're leaving, ask for a copy. It would be nice for you to let our people know about this conversation this morning. I also want, in a very, very special way, to recognize the people online, those of you who are watching us on Zoom and watching us on NBS and watching us on the URA TV, on YouTube. Thank you for staying with us for the better part of this morning. I will not keep you any longer, more than we should be here. May I also, in a very special way now, recognize the presence of the Director, Economic Affairs in the Ministry of Finance, my friend Moses Kagwa. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. And you have a critical part to play at the end of this conversation. All right. So, gentlemen, maybe I'll begin at the far end. You'll introduce yourselves briefly. And then we'll move quickly into questions so that we know who you are, all the three gentlemen in front of us. Just check, they are going to test their mics just to make, I need them to speak so we know that their microphones are working. Okay. Julius, is yours working?
Hello.
You can introduce yourself. We can start with you, so since your mic was already on.
Thank you very much, Ndugu Morris. I'm Julius Kapwepwe. I'm here on behalf of the Uganda Debt Network.
Thank you, Julius. Morris. My name is Eric Sempambo. I'm not the Deputy Chairperson of Private Sector Foundation, but I'm here to represent the CEO. I'm an investment specialist, business environment. Thank you.
All right, we'll work on his microphone. It's still very low. Yes.
Yeah.
Doctor.
Thank you, Morris. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Francis Mwesije, Chief Economist, Uganda Development Bank, but also here representing MD. Thank you.
UDB. Francis, I had them refer to you as doctor. I need to be careful. I need to know. If you've gone to school, I must recognize your qualification. All right. Julius, let me begin with you because in our previous engagements, and we've seen this based on the work you do at the Debt Network, we are looking at the budget, financial year 22-23, and we're looking at the opportunities therein in the budget. You always have a bird's eye view on this budget year in, year out. What are those quick opportunities you've discovered based on the major pillars, which of course the PSST spoke to, that are driving the next financial year budget?
Moderator, as the Ugandans say, all protocol observed, so that we can go to the gist of the matter. I am looking at this as not as a dialogue, but as really a monologue. We are not discussing aspects on where we could influence the budget process for next financial year. That's a foregone conclusion. It's a monologue, it's an informational kind of session. But also, it touches on the current financial year, next financial year that we are looking at more critically, but over the medium-term horizon as well, because as highlighted earlier on, some of the aspects, some of the fit of the aspects of the current forthcoming areas also touch or step into the medium-term kind of horizon. So that's broadly where I'm coming from. I'm also not coming from the Book of Lamentations this time. I wish to go to the Book of Acts. What is it that we can do? I'm also coming from the perspective that the narrative that whenever we have a public financial need, we must necessarily run to borrowing is getting challenged. And I'm glad the area commissioners have put that to light, that we can be able to use existing opportunities herein and around us and be able to make that formidable kind of development spectrum that we wish to achieve. I'll give you an example, for instance, quickly touch on what the representative of the minister highlighted, the parish development model as a case, as one of the many cases. We don't have all the time here. That you can successfully have 39% of your people as the primary target being added onto the money economy bracket. Oh, what a wonderful thing. So we can only wish, but also act that is implemented. And we will stand in different forums to ensure that the government accounts to having achieved that. Why? Because if, for instance, you looked at the production and productivity potential that we have, where every parish in Uganda out of the 10,594 parishes really are making a contribution to the market, to the homestead first, but also to the market. That would be very, very significant. So from the budget perspective and the spending that has been proposed, I see that as a big opportunity, especially also because it links us into the ESC protocol, for instance, as Abel Kagumire has highlighted. That opportunity, unless we tap some of these opportunities that have been presented, we may not be able to fully partake of those kinds of avenues. But also that links me to the continental market potential that again Kagumire touched on. If you looked at the potential we have by, for instance, in utilizing the existing infrastructure, stock of public infrastructure that we have borrowed for. Look at Kapchorwa, Queen, Swam River or Swam Bridge, 73-kilometer road that is being tarmacked, that is being paved. It is possible that we can utilize that road to open up the wheat, and I'm not just saying wheat production, I'm saying the wheat processing capacity. In other words, taking processed wheat and wheat products through that bridge of Kapchorwa to Swam River and Swam Bridge and up here to the city, say, of Kapenguria, on the Kapenguria city on the Kenyan side, or straight here to Kitale, without even talking about the Mombasa and the Nairobi markets. So I see that as a big opportunity for the farmers, for the business people to invest in that kind of agro-led facility, to be able to increase their own incomes, but also to expand on the GDP of this country that we aspire to see. And linked to that also is what the budget has presented, the regional balanced development. You can hear the words, regional balanced development and the trillions that have been put in, also to bring our other regions across the country that are lagging a bit behind. So in terms of processing, in terms of agro-industrialization, and other aspects of industrialization, I see that as a quick other opportunity. I'll also quickly touch on an aspect I believe, I know you're about to say you have 1 minute. Please alert me when I am. Honorable Kasaija, the delegated Minister for Finance, lamented about the shortage of global supply materials such as containers, oils, and all these different aspects. Alas, I saw them as an opportunity. In the previous week, His Excellency President Museveni had made a very welcoming and moving speech, you could say contribution, about the level of potential that we have for iron and steel products in the Chigezi areas. So for me, Chigezi and also Nkore areas. So for me, that can go beyond speeches and actual work is done on ground so that we utilize these opportunities that Kagumire was raising here in terms of the possible exemptions, and if you're a local kind of processor, we utilize them. I see that as a big opportunity. I think we've had a big discussion around that for such a long time as a country. It is high time that we started doing some actual groundwork so that we can partake of the regional steel market opportunities, not only within the expanded East African community states, but also those around us like Chad and Central African Republic. And lastly, maybe for me for now, the level of increased public debt notwithstanding, it is possible that it is now time we need to utilize and maximize utility thereof from this kind of stock of investment that we have done. So I think we may not, arguably not worry about the debt situation for now. We have concerns, but that can be raised on a separate note. But I think through agro-industrialization, spending in trillions that has been proposed, the regional development, regional balanced development spending in trillions that has been proposed, the parish development model in trillions that have been proposed can ably utilize the current stock of investment infrastructure, part of which has been built through public debt, so that we are able to finance back and also move the country forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Julius. Thank you so much. I want to move to the private sector, and since we are talking to issues of harnessing opportunities in the budget, so what's your role as a private sector in, first of all, actualizing this full monetization of our Ugandan economy? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maurice, for that. Thank you very much, Maurice, for that. I hope I put this together. Thank you very much, Maurice, for that question. As private sector, I think if you look at the budget speech, if I'm not mistaken, page 10 is talking about the fact that we have 40 trillion shillings available for expenditure, the money which we can touch, like the PSST explained. And for us as business community, that is a market. When you say we have 40 billion that is ready for expenditure, it means that actually the market size is 40 billion. And it's interesting that actually this market is growing, because it is projected to grow at 6.3%. And also, I think the PSST ably gave us statistics that is 175 trillion shillings by this time next year. So this is a market for us, and perhaps one of the biggest opportunities we are seeing in the budget. The question rather is, we might need to spend some time to look at how much of our budget is facilitating growth in external countries. Because if this 40 trillion is not spent, a big chunk of it spent locally, it means there's somebody taking it. And therefore, we are not able to harness those opportunities. Moderator, if you look at the resources going for public procurement alone, it's about 13 trillion. Last year, it was about 12.5. And out of that 12.5, we got about 70% that went externally. It didn't stay in the economy. We didn't get tax revenue over it. It didn't employ our people. So it was not actually an opportunity. So the point I'm raising now is we need to concentrate on making these opportunities tangible. And to do that, we all have to play a role. As private sector, one of our biggest roles would be ensuring that we are competitive to participate in these markets. Because this is a global economy, you can no longer wake up and close doors. You have to compete. But on the government side, there are critical things that have to be done to facilitate our competitiveness. And I speak to the normal enablers that we know: cost of money, cost of traffic jam. Annually, Ugandan productive labor spends 2.3 months in traffic jam. And World Bank estimates that to $3 billion because of traffic jam. So that is a cost we need to address. Issues that relate to legal regulatory regime. I'm excited that there is a lot of automations being spoken about in this budget, which is a very good thing to help us become efficient. But we need to work from talking to actually doing. This will really help us to harness the opportunities. I'll speak to local content. Currently, we are participating between 35 to 40% of our variable procurements. And very unfortunately, that most of these procurements are actually borrowed resources, where the private sector is expected to generate more revenue to pay back the loans. But we don't participate equitably. So we need to have the national local content law, which is an affirmative action law that will help us be able to effectively participate into these procurements, which will take advantage of to generate revenue that will pay back the interest that we have to pay and grow our country. The second opportunity I could see is the fact that this year there are no new taxes. We have argued over some time that tax is a big factor that drives cost of production. And so companies consider tax when they are setting up their plants. And I'll speak to, for instance, excise duty. Normally, we've been having changes in excise duty on an annual basis. And yet, factories and companies have been set up to last for some time. So we have always argued for some tax stability. Can we have predictability? We should not change taxes like we are doing birthday gifts. So it's exciting this year that we have some form of stability. But maybe another thing we need to look in there is, and I heard it very clearly from the PSST, is the common saying that this is a target for URA. That, in our opinion, should actually not be the case. The case should be, it should be a target for our country. And all of us should work towards achieving that. And the reason why I say so, in the URA handbook that you have on your desk, there is a matrix where they provide justification, and the previous presenters talked about it. You realize that most of that is promotion of local production, protection of local industries, ESC-related things. Now, most of those recommendations or comments cannot actually be actualized by URA alone. So it requires also other MDAs, other pieces of government, including the private sector, to join hands and we score in the same goal. So if we don't do that, we've had incidences where we quickly come back and actually reduce the same taxes because we are failing to achieve simply because we are not doing things in the same manner. There is clear emphasis in impacting the 39% of Ugandans. And that is, again, an exciting opportunity. Because for us in the business community, these are actually not effective consumers of our products because they don't have money. So if you make them ready to consume our products, then we're actually willing and able to play a role. And parish development model being used as a vehicle is a very good one. Perhaps one of the things we could look at in that space is how do we integrate security in the PDM? And the security I'm talking about is not the security of DPC, of police, or the rest. The 39%, wherever you'll go now, if they are in a non-livestock area, they are scared of investing in animals because of the rampant theft that is happening there. People who have invested in vanilla, in Bundibujo, when it's harvesting time comes, they actually sleep in the gardens. So actually, if you speak to them, they are scared of increasing production because of security-related issues. The same applies to coffee. So it would be interesting or fantastic if we function a way how we can introduce security in the PDM. Because we are going to boost production and productivity, but we need to safeguard whatever that we're going to do. Okay. The last part I will speak to, Maurice, I'm sorry I'm speaking too long, is commodity prices. The PSST talked about the fact that this budget is going to touch the needs of the people, which is actually true. Between January and now, the price of wheat has increased by 80%, and this is import price. Now, and normally whenever there is a shock like this, it gives one opportunity, which is innovation. When COVID came, we learned how to use Zoom. We are not innovating anything, and this budget is very weak at that. How do we innovate amidst the current challenges? There is information that actually there's people trying to produce composite flour of maize and wheat in Mbale, but they are moving along. What can we do as an industrial strategy to promote this? Thank you.
I think you are speaking to my next question, which is really going to the Development Bank. And Francis, to you, because we are looking for affordable credit, affordable long-term credit, which is meant to spur economic growth in the short and medium term. As we speak to issues of commercial agriculture, industrialization, what's your role as a bank? And the PSST said they've, again, this financial year, the next financial year, you're getting some money as a bank from the budget. Then what is your role then to actualize the same question I had for PSFU, to actualize this monetization of our economy?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Maurice. Before I really speak about our role as a bank, I wanted to follow up on the opportunities that we see in this and how we are positioned as a bank to facilitate or achievement of these objectives. Number one, what we see as a key opportunity is that there is an opportunity to enhance resilience of Ugandans. And resilience is key. COVID hit many societies hard, especially those that were less resilient. What we find in the current budget, especially the goal number one of kickstarting the process of moving 39% of Ugandans in subsistence economy into money economy, is one step towards that. But beyond that, we also see other initiatives. For example, the Small Business Recovery Fund, which is really targeting micro businesses. We see also support not only to those that are at the bottom, but along the chain, the support that goes through, for example, Uganda Development Bank to support small and medium enterprises. We also see other forms of support. That is in addition to many other allocations that we see that go to agro-industrialization and manufacturing. So for us, that is a great opportunity that we see. The second opportunity that we find in this is promotion of inclusive socio-economic transformation. When the PSST was speaking here and talked about our entry into the lower middle income status, he made a comment. He said we shouldn't be excited about that unless we have a redistribution of this to see that everyone is benefiting. Otherwise, it will remain a per capita. If this income is not equally distributed, not many people will benefit from this. But what we find in this budget really, especially through PDM, Parish Development Model, you see that intent and move to make sure that everyone benefits from that budget, which is a great opportunity. And lastly, what we see as an opportunity, before I come to what really we are doing as a bank, is an opportunity for social, what we call structural transformation of the economy. And currently, as we know our economy by structure, this has been said over and over again, that you have a sector which is contributing 22% to your budget, that is agriculture, employing 68% of your population. Now, that is a huge mismatch. And normally it alludes to two things. One, you either have many unproductive people in the sector, or there is less value to what you produce. And the two are true when it comes to Uganda's agriculture. So when you see the support that is looking at different segments of agri-value chains, you really see an increase, a likely increase in value of what we produce. If you produce and there is a ready off-taker in a processor or a manufacturer, and we saw it even from the changes that were made, customs, to protect local investors. This is a huge opportunity. How is Uganda Development Bank feeling this, or how is it coming in to support realization of these well-intentioned moves or initiatives? Number one, just to clarify, for those who may not know, that Uganda Development Bank is a DFI, a Development Financial Institutions. Therefore, sometimes people mistake us for commercial banks, and they judge us by what you would judge a commercial bank on. So we provide our financial interventions, both financial and non-financial, but for financial, we have an interest rate of a cap of 12%, 10 to 12% depending on the project. Now, on the first opportunity that I talked to of enhancing resilience, the bank recently came up with a number of initiatives and products, and one of them is the special programs that we just launched this year that is looking or targeting women, youth, and small businesses. This is to help that the lower segments of the chain, if you might call so, or lower segments in the society to get or tap into the financial intervention that we've been giving. Because sometimes the loan application processes exclude some categories of people or businesses in the society. So that's one. And that still speaks to the inclusion, the inclusive socio-economic transformation that I talked to, that you're coming up with products that are targeting different elements in the society, different kinds of businesses. To note here is that, again, when you look at the budget, it was very clear that there's some sort of support or capitalization to the bank that will not support micro businesses. And in the budget, there is a MIOGA and PDM that is to support the micro businesses. Because to put it clear, we provide, our minimum amount that we provide is 50 million Uganda shilling, and not many businesses can apply for that. We went back and used the existing definitions of businesses, small, micro, small, and medium enterprises to large, and you realize that according to the definition, if you look at UBOS and Uganda Investment Authority, you need annual turnover of between 10 and 100 million. So if you don't fall into that category, that is our smallest that we support. Now, there are a number of businesses that fall into that have benefited from our support. But if you don't, there are other initiatives like we've seen through MIOGA, PDM that can support to really lift you to a level where we can also benefit from us. So lastly, on socio-economic, on structural transformation, we have had a number of initiatives, especially in this budget, that are targeting different segments of the chain. So we come in, we support, if I can speak to numbers, about 65% of our funding or loans go into mainly 3 sectors. To note that we target 6 sectors, and that speaks to what normally people accuse us of not supporting all of the people that show up. Our support goes to 6 sectors. That is primary agriculture, agro-processing, manufacturing, tourism, infrastructure, and human capital. But human capital, not all of them. On human capital, we target, for example, in education, BTVETs, those that are into skilling, because we look at additionality of what we support. So if you come and you're establishing a primary school, we probably will not support you, because we feel there is sufficient efforts in that area. So now coming back to how that feeds into the socio-economic transformation, or rather structural transformation, the primary agriculture that we provide, we've supported cooperatives, and we've seen productivity increase. We've supported water for production, dams and irrigation facilities. But we go ahead to look at agro-processing, machinery, through our asset financing, and then we go ahead to also support marketing segments. Now, this is my appeal and my request, how I think this all can, what we need to do to really enhance the achievement of these objectives. I think there is a need to strengthen the coordination of different players or stakeholders. Because what you realize, if I use an example of the support that we provide, if you support a producer, you go back to analyze how they are performing. You find one of their key challenges is access to markets. But we also support processors. If you go to a processor, they will tell you, our problem, we don't have sufficient supply of raw materials. Now, you have a producer who tells you they don't have a market. You go to a processor, they tell you they don't have sufficient raw material, and hence they're operating below capacity. Now, that speaks to how we coordinate and how we intervene as different players. From the development bank, we shall provide credit, but you still need good inputs. You still need good aggregation, post-harvest handling. All this is in the budget, but I think it's to come back to the programmatic approach of NDP3 and really all work as different parts of the chain to help realize this structural transformation.
All right. Thank you very much, Francis. And I really struggled to stop you because you tried to say so many words in the shortest time. What he also probably indirectly spoke to was the financing of green enterprises, which you spoke to in the space around agriculture. He also spoke to the fact that in supporting small and medium enterprises, you're helping the formalization of the small businesses, because that is what the Commissioner General was speaking to. Yeah. All right, if I can get 3 quick questions or comments, I'll allow this group move so I can get the next panel, and then we can combine all the questions. Any quick 3? Just your hand. I'm happy to send a team to you. Do we have other microphones? There is one here. Any other? I need to know where you are so I am deploying properly. And the 2 there. All right. So we'll start with this gentleman here. Here. Just keep it short. Introduce yourself, your name and organization, and then a question or comment.
I'm Philip Sechimpi Kakembo, the National Chairman of Uganda Tailors Association. Thank you very much, because this forum is here to listen, not, I think, to submit what the government is going to implement, as my brother from Deputy Network said. My issue is about economists in this country, because many businesses collapsed, and yet many taxes are initiated. For example, the importers of these textile materials, because I'm from tailoring, some of the companies already collapsed because the materials which we are looking at with the 47 tariffs, there is no materials making this kind of corporate wear, whereby the companies or the importers already kicked out in business. I think you need now to maybe to work together with Uganda, so then you get a list, because we are the consumers. The time we go to buy these materials is not there. Why? Because of taxes. Secondly,
very quickly, yes.
Secondly is about monopolization, because your government is already gave the companies the exemptions, but they fall up. These companies over-levied their goods or their products here because there's no competitors, and the government doesn't come out to, to look into the sales to the local people, and yet the economy in our country is not good.
All right.
As the PS said. So let me stop there.
Okay.
I think.
Thank you very much, Abel. I will come to you. I think you have something to say on this. But, sir, your association should also always find a way of participating in the URA Barazas. It's a platform that allows you to contribute a lot of this feedback to URA and the government structures. There were two people there, the gentleman there and the one behind him. Yes. Keep it short, because I have 5 minutes for the team that is here before I invite another panel. Yes.
My name is Herbert Ramura. I'm found in Kampala here. So when you walk on the streets, you will meet me.
Only you needed to say was that I'm a taxpayer. That is all we wanted to know.
Yes, I'm a taxpayer.
Yes.
But if I'm not a taxpayer, I represent taxpayers. This is a comment, not a question, about the UDB, about enhancing agricultural sector. That is a very good initiative. Here, the gentleman preached wine, but sometimes you people, when we go to participate, real participation, to get those grants or finances, we find here that really you have served water, not wine. The point is here, one time I approached you people, I wanted a loan, I'm a micro enterprise, but the way you structure your own applications or grant applications, when you are filling it, you will find that you are asking some impossible things like land title. I have brought a very good proposal, but you find a very stringent thing which is knocking me out, just one thing, land title. So how will I develop to acquire those land titles if you don't support me?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The gentleman was behind you, I think. Was it? Yes. Francis, your question? You're asking for the impossible?
Thank you very much. Maybe you'll allow me comment on two issues. The first, which I intended to direct it to representative of private sector. Ladies and gentlemen and taxpayers, in business, the most important thing is money. The PS has just told us here, Bank of Uganda has increased the interest rate. Surprisingly, none of our panelists have talked about the increase of interest rate. How shall we move on? How will you encourage manufacturing, the small enterprises, to grow when the cost of doing business actually is rising up day by day? That's one. Two, we are all, I think this may sound a bit political, we are all sick. Thanks to Commissioner General, URA, you are doing your best. But under which circumstances, which atmosphere are we operating in? I was very much interested to keep Mr. Ramadan around because there is a lot of financial indiscipline.
The Director Economic Affairs is here, don't worry.
Yes, let him take the message home.
Yes.
You find a finance minister signs fake things and says, I'm sorry.
Financial indiscipline. No, we get the point.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. And let me now rush to point this one.
The other one, yes.
There's this element of parish model. Everybody is singing parish model, parish model, parish. Yes, parish model is very good. But why are we rushing? Our people are not sensitized. And somewhere somebody said, money is very tempting. You go and throw money in your parishes. I don't expect much that will come out of it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Julius, I'll ask you to discuss that. I think it's a very good question. Yes, everyone is pushing for the parish development model. We have 1 trillion shillings going into the model. One of our critical pillars under the model is financial inclusion. I will start with you on that one, then I'll go to the others, and then Abo will be the last.
Thank you very much, Ndugu Morris. Well, I am not the parish myself. In other words, I may have an extent of response, and perhaps we'll take it on from there. My first broad aspect about the parish development model is that it is a good strategy, challenges notwithstanding. If you come from that narrative, therefore, the next aspect would be, what is it we need to do, you and I, so that we see full implementation as expected? I think for me that's the bottom line. The challenges will always happen, but also precisely and concisely to answer your aspect of the communities are not sensitized. If we had more time, I would have had a bigger discussion. There are those of us who think that the community is being sensitized even right now as we speak, that there are foot soldiers across the country, across the 10,594 parishes, and taking the gospel of parish development model. But we can check on the details. But related to that, Morris, is the Herbert question. Regardless of, say, CBR increase by the central bank or anything else that is manipulated as highlighted by the PSST, the parish development model is saying that for me, I would afford people credit of a certain category at 6% per annum. That's about 0.something% per month, regardless of all these other dynamics, because it is a presidential commitment and we can only take it as such. And I think amongst aspects it will support is the aspect of machinery, agro-processing, agri-development along the entire value chain. So if the UDB window is maybe for certain categories of people that require collateral, in the case of parish development model, we have seen that the collateral is not required. The only collateral you have is your group members. So we can study these details and partake the advantages, the opportunities that they provide, rather than perhaps skipping the Book of Lamentations. Thank you.
PSFU?
Thank you very much.
You're not raising the issue of cost of credit, the cost of money, and the impact it will have on the private sector. Yes.
Thank you very much, Maurice, on that. And unfortunately, I didn't capture the name of the gentleman who asked that question. There is a very common statement happening on WhatsApp and social media. It's in Uganda called wetege. And I think that's what my colleague has been talking about. The resources put in the budget, especially under parish development model, Pillar 5, require you to kwetega, to harness them. So if you don't do that, then first of all, you're losing an opportunity. But on a bigger level, the issue of credit has been, I think, ever present in our recommendations to government. We have even sometimes proposed mechanisms that can guarantee risk. For instance, if you design a facility similar to agricultural credit facility, and maybe do it in another sector and address the rigidities around it, it could take us some stakes. But it is a topic that we can discuss on another day. It has its different phases. But Maurice also allowed me to talk about the PDM slightly. And I agree with my panelists. On paper and principle, it's a good strategy. It is perhaps one of the few strategies that does beyond money. Because even the private sector that is in urban areas struggle to pay back loans, then what about the 39%? So it is important to do beyond the money. The challenge we need to address is walking the talk and avoid excitement. Because whenever we excite, we don't achieve results. Thank you.
All right. Francis?
Thank you, Morris. Thank you, Herbert, for your question. This response will go to you, but also, I think, to all of us here. To note that UDB, the money we give out is taxpayers' money. We get capitalization from the government. Therefore, we must be accountable to the taxpayers. We need to secure the monies that we give out, just to make it clear. If I give some numbers, in 2020, we disbursed or gave out loan worth 242 billion. In 2021, that money grew. We gave out loans worth 428 billion. This year, we are targeting to give out money worth 612 billion. We are on course to achieving that target. The reason this money grows is because it's a revolving sort of fund with little interest. We need people to pay back so others can benefit. And the only way we make sure that people pay back is to secure that money. And to note that we don't only use land as collateral, because we also understand there are people who do not have land. That's why we have what we call asset financing, where if you have machinery, you can use that as collateral. We have trade financing, where you can use your stock to secure for that money. But that money must be secured for it to grow. Number two is to note that we do not fund everyone. And I think I mentioned that in my first submission. We fund small and medium enterprises. We do not fund micro. It was even clear in the budget. Honorable Minister talked about it, that to support these other segments, the micros, it's when you have the circles, rather the EMIOGA that goes to circles, it's where you have PDM and other initiatives. Therefore, if you are into micro, and we have a clear definition, there we have the turnover as defined by Uganda Bureau of Statistics and Uganda Investment Authority. And you indicated, Herbert, that you had a micro business. That could have been one of the reasons as to why you did go through, but also sectors. I mentioned the 6 sectors that we support. So there are some who show up and they're into real estates, and we tell them we don't support that. Because for additionality, we are aligned to NDP, National Development Plan 3, and we acknowledge that we can't do everything. So we define the sectors that are into our strategic plan. Now, the last one that I really wanted to speak to on the monies that
Yeah, quickly, Morris, I think my question was from the Chairman, National Tailors Association. Thank you for your question. Now, the decision on textiles and garments to pay at $3 and $3.5 per kilogram has been running for about 2 years. And the tailors petitioned the minister when we were actually implementing this decision. And the minister had capacity. You remember that time almost all textiles and garments were supposed to pay at $35 and then have the specific duty rate. So when the traders and the tailors visited these factories, which are known, Naitil, Fine Spinners, Sunbelt, you know them, they found actually the capacity to produce 525 tariff lines was not possible. So they singled out items they produce. Clear T-shirts, polyester fabrics, cotton fabrics, uniforms, kitenge, that's what they were able to produce. And that's how we zeroed on the 47 tariff lines. So we do not handle. So the policy is affecting only 47 tariff lines which were inspected and approved that our manufacturers are able to produce. I hope that is the way I can respond to this question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our panel. Please take your seats, but leave our gadget behind as you leave, okay? So we will quickly migrate into the next conversation as the team does that. Allow me mention that those at the back, if you really can't hear properly, it's because you're really at the back, and we didn't think there would be people at the back, yeah? So the sound is very good at the front. The chairs in the middle here are very comfortable, in fact. I don't know which chairs you're sitting on at the back, but I want to invite our next panel. Allow me invite the Executive Director, Accord, Dr. Arthur Beinomjisha, as we also mic them, so somebody needs to come and mic them. And also invite the Executive Director, Siatini, Ms. Jen. Now we have a woman on the panel, finally. And the Executive Director, CS BAG, Julius Mukunda. Yes, you are here on my list. You seem to be shocked, Julius. You're a partner in this conversation, Julius, so you can't avoid being invited. As we mic the two gentlemen and lady, please allow us just eat into some of your lunchtime, because immediately after this panel, and these are experts, because they're always on every panel, so theirs is 2 minutes for each statement they make. We will then invite, of course, the Commissioner General to invite the Director of Economic Affairs to close this dialogue. So I'll probably begin with Arthur. Arthur is more prepared, but Arthur, if your microphone doesn't work, I'll be happy to bring you a microphone. We're looking at Uganda's tax policy as an economic stimulus, and I wanted to begin with you, Arthur, Dr. Arthur. The great news that, first of all, there would be no new taxes was exciting. But when we hear from the Commissioner General and his ability to include another 800,000 people in the tax, on the tax register, that is a sign of things to come. And so his will be now to collect a little more money from the same economy where we've not introduced any new taxes to capture more money out of the economy. Does this speak to a package in the next financial year that allows for growth in the economy? Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much, Morris, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Introduced Dr. Winomcha, I'm the Executive Director, CODE. First, to take this opportunity to appreciate the Uganda Revenue Authority for the efforts, especially in increasing tax collections. While that is very impressive, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to be a devil's advocate and speak my mind, because I come from civil society, and our job is to amplify the voices of the voiceless, the inconvenient truth that may not come. So I'm not really political or diplomatic. So URA has done well in increasing the tax base. But I think what is still amiss is the fact that actually they have not been able to broaden the tax base. And as such, the small group that is in formal employment continue to breed in order to fund, to raise money to run the country. And so for some of us, I run a small institution, it's about 50 people. But most people would not want their salaries increased, especially beyond 10 million. Because you increase beyond 10 million, then 40%. So it doesn't, so people say, you just keep me at 9,900,000 and something like that. So does it make sense? So the small group that is in formal employment actually suffers, and we do not leave enough money for them to invest. Because you see, we are working in order to create wealth. So if most of the money is taken, then you cannot invest and create more wealth. So yes, it is important to now broaden the tax base. Can you imagine the number of people that pay taxes in this country? 45 million, and I think the Commissioner General talked of how many? About how many? 2.4. What is this? What is this? Are we serious? 45 million and only 2.4 and they pay taxes. How do we run the country? How do we talk about growth? So I think that it is important to broaden that. And of course, to do that, again, the gentlemen and women of URA doing a good job, but also don't break the eggs that would hatch into chicken that actually could lay more eggs. I think some of the methods that you have used, and you know, before I come here, I do my own research. So some of the methods I know you under pressure to raise money, but you can destroy the businesses. Businesses have closed. People have lost jobs. So I think you are going to invest a lot in tax education. You are going to invest a lot in helping the businesses to formalize, to be smarter, so that they can pay. So that they can pay you the taxes. Otherwise, you are vigilant. And of course, there's some corruption also, but you may not see it. Because if they push you so much, then you can also give them something, and the pressure is reduced. So invest as part of the budget of URA that you submit formally include tax education, serious tax education, but also go beyond that to capacity building for these small and medium enterprises. I have traveled, I've lived around the world. Small and medium enterprises are the economy, but here your focus is big time businesses. Those are the ones that enjoy tax holidays. Those are the ones that you take tea and coffee with. Between 1 to 20 people actually across the world are the ones actually that provide more employment. I think 70% of the employment of the jobs in this country is provided by small and medium enterprises. That's where the investment should go. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to quickly talk about some of the reforms. Mr. Kagwa is here. I talked to the president of Uganda Local Government Association, Mr. Rwabuhinga, before he came here. The tax, you're also killing the service delivery down there, because you see, service delivery, how it is killed, you have made it difficult. They raise the money and send it to URA. Does it come to URA directly or it goes to finance? They raise the money, send it, but getting money back to run their businesses. For example, he was telling me like garbage collection. They have to pay people like that one, but they have also to pay the councils to sit. So once they send money to the treasury, they have of course, to apply to get it back. It is very, very, very cumbersome. And so make it easy for them to get money. That's what I'm talking about. Make it easy for the local governments to get money so that they can, of course, offer service delivery. That is their mandate within centralization, but also execute their mandate so that there's no decay down there. The other thing that they are talking about is that sometimes they correct over and above. You have set targets for local governments. They correct over and above, but that over and above, they can't get it back. To get it back, and it's not, of course, URA, it's not the ministry, it is the law. The law is so cumbersome, and I think the law is good for regulating society, but a law should not be inflexible, it should not be rigid to cause underdevelopment. If we don't deliver quality service delivered at the local government level, we'll have a problem. I want to quickly comment on the parish development model, which everybody is talking about. My organization works closely. We have an MOU with the Ministry of Local Government, and so we support the parish development model. But there are issues. So it's not really a silver bullet. So I'm not expecting too much from it unless certain things are worked on. One, the money that we are talking about, 100 million, is not enough. And so, Commissioner General, we need enough money. If you can do small mathematics, 100 million for a parish, 100 million every financial, how much is that money? If you look at the households there, they will get 1 million perhaps per household. What is 1 million? Can 1 million lift a household from poverty? It will not. But it is a very good initiative. It's a very good intervention to bring 39% of our people into the money economy. But I think we need proper and efficient financing. We need the mindset change. So that but also finally on that one is climate change, adaptation and mitigation. You see, when you are talking about the parish development model, you are talking about, yes, agribusiness. You are trying transforming agriculture, but we do not see commensurate investment in the green economy. And so you are going to put money there. People are going to cut down forests. They are going to use the swamps, and then you are going to have climate change setting in terms of drought and erratic rains and nothing. Then we go back to square one. So I think we need to be careful and, in the investment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arthur. I'll come to consistently where you've highlighted the need for government to either look into those spaces. I know in the past it has been specifically around extractives, and now, listening to Arthur, bringing the informal businesses into the money economy. How do we then drive this, a tax policy, a positive tax policy that allows for this growth in the economy and brings on board more taxpayers? I think you need to switch on there. Just make sure. Is it on?
This side.
Hello.
This one. Push it.
There you go.
Thank you so much. And, good afternoon.
Let me bring you another mic. That one is a bit low.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'm Jen Narunga from Siatini, Uganda. I would like to thank the Ministry of Finance, URA, and also my partners here from civil society for this great partnership. On the issue of Uganda's tax policy as an economic stimulus, and also to see how we can be able to improve revenue, I think it's important to agree that taxation goes beyond just revenue, that taxation should be a tool to stimulate development, stimulate the economy. And I was very happy with a presentation by Mr. Kagumire when he told us about the custom duties and how they are going to help us to stimulate the economy. So when we talk about no new taxes, sometimes we shouldn't really celebrate, because if we are using tax as a repricing tool, we should be putting in place some new taxes. I know my organization who have been putting on table taxes around plastics to ensure that we recycle. You know, we encourage recycling of plastics in order to protect the environment. And for me, I hope government will be able to address this, that we need to tax plastics which are not recycled. I also want to raise the issue of fair taxation, that every one of us should be paying our fair share of taxes. And another example is the issue of pay as you earn. My brother Asa is talking about the higher level. I wanted to talk about the bottom level, that let us raise the bar. You know, somebody getting 235, that's less than $100, and you start taxing. For me, I think that's not really fair. Mr. Kagumire, when he was presenting, talked about the Continental Free Trade Area, that we should support it. But I think what's really important is to negotiate, because trade agreements are negotiated. We are supposed to remove revenue, taxes on our products, our trade. 90% of our trade with the entire Africa under the Continental Free Trade Area. So 90% of tariffs are off. So what does this mean to our revenue collection? And we are supposed to do that 7% in 10 years, and then we protect just 3%. So 90% of our taxes of our trade in the continent, what does that mean? And I think we need to do that. We need to have that in mind. And I think also, because globally under the OECD, they are negotiating the minimum tax rate, they are telling us corporate tax is supposed to be 15%. We are charging 30%, so that's half of our taxes on corporate tax. What does that mean? And how do we address the gap? On the issue of improving revenue, I think we need to address the issue of the leakages. The leakages are too many. One of them, the double taxation agreements. My organization has been talking about this. When you look at our companies, the investors, most of them are domiciled in Netherlands or Mauritius because of the double taxation agreements. And we are losing a lot of resources. And I know the Ministry of Finance is negotiating this, but I think it needs to be done. There are issues of tax exemptions. The Auditor General's report is clear, but we find in this budget, there is a tax exemption to the Bujagali Dam, and we are asking why. Why should we continue giving tax exemptions? There is the issue of a regional approach. We need to harmonize our taxes within the region to facilitate trade, but also to address smuggling, especially at the border. Just the VAT, harmonizing the VAT would be very important. Chair, let me also say something about the PDM. I'm happy that government is going down to the parish, but I think we need to be clear. What's the challenge at the household level? For me, I believe that this country, we can trade our way out of poverty. But what we have been seeing is that we have the markets. The markets are there. We are now negotiating the Continental Free Trade Area. Europe told us, bring everything but arms under EBA. We have AGOA, but we have failed either to be able to take the right products there, or we don't use them at all. So unless the PDM is related to markets, then we are going to see more poverty at household level, because people are going to be producing without a market. Today, we see pineapples. People buy pineapples, all of us. You say somebody put them in the car, 10 of them at 10,000. Then you wonder what's happening to the farmer who is producing these pineapples. So the issue of markets, having real markets, and linking the PDM with the production, the backward and forward linkages between production, value addition, and marketing is very important. Lastly, Chair, Moderator, the issue of social contract is very, very important. The PSST talked about transparency, accountability, but this has to be seen to be done. The prudent use of resources. You can't tell people to pay taxes when money is being misused. Let government show that they are prudently using our resources, they are accounting for the money, then people will be able to pay. In our organization, we usually tell our people, pay your taxes, demand for accountability. We talk about rights and obligations of the taxpayers that you pay but demand. But we're also saying that government should also provide accountability and a prudent use of resources.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Julius, you have the last word here. Our tax to GDP is still relatively low in the region, and at the continent level. But also, you could look at it on the flip side and say that would mean it is good for economic stimulus to spur economic growth, because then we're not picking more money out of the economy than we should. And then somebody else would say, then you're also not picking money out of the economy that should be going into increasing support for government's initiatives in infrastructure and all the initiatives that both Arthur and Jen are speaking to. Your view on that and how we're able to get that win-win balance?
Yes. Thanks, Maurice, and to URA for organizing this. Yeah, I think, Maurice, the biggest challenge I think we are facing is to be able to collect more without affecting businesses. That's a really very, very delicate balance. And to congratulate the government for actually taking that painful decision of not to increase taxes, despite having a 48 trillion budget, and you only have 25 trillion to collect. So it's a painful decision, but the right thing to do at this particular moment where we are coming from. What needs to be done, I think, for me is you can only collect more if you invest in collection. And my point was actually even, I mentioned at Entebbe Airport when there was only one scanner, and you end up telling people, you go away, start sampling. We have 2 scanners. It tells you the issue of investing. Right now, we are told that you have only 1 URA staff in charge of 77,500 taxpayers to collect money from. I find that ratio really not adequate. We just need a miracle for all these people to collect all this particular money. So my point is, we need to invest a lot in technology, invest in capacity building, invest in having enough people to collect all the money that is out there. The other element I think we also need to learn from is, if Morris, you have areas you are not paying, probably you are not seeing other people not paying, and therefore you are likely to relax not to pay. And I think government is very poor at paying tax arrears. Because I think as of November 2021, they had close to 658 billion Ugandan shillings. Government tax arrears not paid. What does this tell? It tells you that even as you push hard, please bring that money, somebody is seated saying, I don't have enough, I'm not likely to pay. So you're not able to hit your target. But also I think there are some practices which I think Mr. Koga definitely needs to talk about. You are an accounting officer, you collect payee from me, and you don't remit it to URA. And the next financial year, you are still an accounting officer. Really? I think it's high time we begin to put some discipline into that. That if you have collected this payee or VAT or withdrawing tax, and you supposed to go to URA, and you have not taken it, there must be some sanctions on that. And that's very, 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 for me, very important. The other part, I think, where I also need to improve is on our tax exemption management. Again, I thank government for releasing a tax expenditure report where we have almost 7.7 trillion Ugandan shillings, taxes we have foregone. I think exemptions where we are right now, I think we are challenged to either stop them, to tell government don't give them. But I think there's something we can do, Morris. We can follow up. If an investor comes, put up business, promises to invest $1 million, employ 100 people, down the road, there must be a mechanism of monitoring whether actually you have fulfilled that condition. It is sad that you come to promise 1 million and you become a chapati seller. You begin competing with my friend from Chikubo, who is a tailor, because at the end of the day, and yet you have the tax exemptions. So you distort prices in the community, you distort marketing dynamics, and a person who's actually a genuine taxpayer now finds business extremely very expensive. So we need to deal with that. Lastly, for me, is on the issue of tax stability. I think a colleague mentioned it here. It is critical and very important. When you start a company, knowing that your products you are bringing on board will cost you a tax of 10%. And a year down the road, it is 15. Another down the road, it is 18. It becomes difficult for you as a company to be able to project your profits or even to grow. So again, I thank government at this of not including taxes, but please let us also look at how we can make it more sustainable by doing that one. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Julius. I really would have liked as many questions, but if there is 2 burning questions, I have, oh my God, there's a, I was about to say, are we voting for anything? Where are those microphones? So I'm able to see where these people are. If you can do it in 20 seconds, I am happy to take as many. When I saw Kasita here, I'm tempted to begin with Kasita. Allow me start here, then I'll come to the old man. Yes, here.
Okay, thank you, comrades. I want to thank Minister of Finance and then URA for such a great engagement. But even our panelists have really done a very great job. My name is Musoke Thaddeus Nagenda, Chairman Kasita, Uganda. As Kasita, we decided to partner with government agencies to widen the tax base and then to seriously sensitize our members to comply with the tax regime. But our concern is Sure, I think Minister of Finance should allocate a bigger budget, like some of the panelists highlighted, for sensitization. Most of the time, even, we use our little resources to make sure that we sensitize Ugandans about tax compliance. So we need to be so critical on this. Another point we had, it was about the level of taxes in the country. The fact is, most of our members are running out of business because the taxes are so high. With the tax for the governments, we engaged you and Minister of Finance. So what we are doing now, we are saying, let us leave the governments out. But why should we protect some local industries which cannot produce some commodities and importation?